Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fleet's Random Ramblings 82. Yes, 82, if you can believe it. One more week until the 4-year anniversary. But yeah, it's gonna be very exciting this week, hopefully. I mean, last week I saw Drac not once, not twice, but 3 times, so that's a new record. And then, of course, next week we've got more of the same, because, well, there's literally going to be the massive 4-year anniversary ramblings that I'm sure, well, I know I'm looking forward to, but whether or not any of the rest of you are, I don't know. I hope so. I hope you're all looking forward to it as much as I am. But I can't tell. Sometimes it's hard to know. Hang on a minute. Did I forget my links? Did I forget to do the proper linkages? Did Fleet just pull an idiot moment? Yeah. Yes, I did. I did. Daft sod. Never mind. Never mind. It wouldn't be a classic Fleet moment without that, would it? Never mind. Never mind. And I see Dr. Clark's already here. Remarkably punctual of him. I mean, I've invited him up. Wonder what's taking him. he must be getting a cuppa. He's probably getting a cuppa, or probably an iron brew. Well, maybe, you never know. He could be breaking the mold. He could be getting a cuppa. I don't know. Don't think I've ever seen Dr. Clark drink a cup of tea.
I don't drink tea.
What a horrifying thought. I couldn't go without it.
I don't drink tea.
I couldn't go without it.
I don't drink tea or coffee.
Well, not drinking coffee, I could agree with. Hi, Timu. Hi, Bone Meal Boy. Hang on, the bot's not. Gee, good lord, give it 5 minutes. Poor old streamer bot.
Release the bots!
Tago delita est.
No, some would argue
Tago
that
delita est.
the bot should have already been active.
So, before we get started, we do have the announcement to make. So, I'll announce it now for the people who are here nice and early, and then, of course, there'll be an announcement later for those who trickle in later, as we know we do get people who do trickle in later down the line. But the announcement is I am now actually ready to announce the final guest list for next week. These are only the people who've confirmed they're going to be there, and all being well, will hopefully all be there. So, there's myself, Foxo, Dragon, Cyclic, Alex Clark, Drac, Chieftain, Venom Geek Media, Rex's Hangar, The Shipyard, and that is the entire guest list as it stands right now, shaping up to be the largest panel I've ever done, if you can believe it. Might not be the longest one, but it's
There's
definitely...
someone complaining you've forgotten them already. Because they'll be here.
Yes, but they won't be on the panel. They'll be here, but they won't be on the panel, per se.
And they're feeling also very aggrieved for your fluffy research assistants as well, on this ground.
They're sleeping, bless them. They don't usually come into the shed. They much prefer to sleep. Trinity's quite old, bless her. She's not got the activity to do that. And Minnie's a cat, and she just goes where she likes.
Yeah.
If they want to come
Mine's
with
a
me,
poodle
if they wanted to come with me, I'd be happy to have them. But they're very happy just sleeping in the sun.
Yeah.
Also, Guy's apparently going to be there as well. And for the possiblies, there's possibly I'm gonna try and hook in as possibly as Chair, Hood, and of course Random Idiot, who helped get Ramblings off the ground in the first place. So try and get us, but those are possibly not definites.
Oh,
So
that'd be nice.
without
It'll be
further
fun.
without further ado, I mean, my plan is that I'll start 2 hours early ahead of when I've told everyone else I want them to be there, and that gives me time to get the stream going, have a bit of back and forth with people, get through the Patreon questions quickly, and then everyone else can turn up at that point, you know. Okay.
That sounds good.
Timu Locker asks, congratulations on the anniversary Fleet & Co. on Patreon. What was the question that caused the longest ramblings? Given that the only question that caused a ramblings of its own so far has been the Red Fleet timeline, it unfortunately kind of wins by default.
Nope. No, it doesn't.
I mean...
You're
Thank you,
forgetting
Dragon.
one.
No, I don't think I am.
What if the German High Seas Fleet was brought forward to 1939?
That's
Okay,
rather a short one, but okay, yeah.
No, it wasn't, because it took about 2 hours of the first ramblings, and then spawned a second ramblings with you being asked about it.
well,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Right,
but yeah, but
this is in about 20 minutes.
yes,
So
but
that
it was
that
asking.
would technically
it
speaking
was-
be the longest question.
Eh,
Also, the
It
Red Fleet
would-
timeline is more a
but
special
for
more
very
than a
light
single
logic,
question.
the Red Fleet timeline's the longest because that's had what
Four
four or five
different-
ramblings. at
yes,
this
it
point?
has.
But but they've not really been. That's not been a question of Red Fleet timeline. It's more a question of various aspects being asked during Fleet Team
No,
specials.
no, that is, there have been like 3 or 4 ramblings that have just been the Red Fleet timeline, but just
Wait,
weren't
most of them have just
recorded.
been rehashes. But,
Pretty much, yeah, but still, if there was ever a candidate for the longest question, it is that.
Yeah, that wasn't much of a question though.
That's what I'm saying. It's not really a question. Hey.
Right, okie dokie. So, yeah, so very quickly again, so we've got 10 people in. This is all very nice and good. And on YouTube, we have a lovely number of people. We're up to 5 now, so 15 total. So again, just in case anybody missed it, in fact, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna write it down. I'm gonna write it down in the pins, and then I'm gonna pin it, and then I can say, look at the pins. Yeah, that's what I'll do. That's a clever Fleet moment. That's using the old grey matter.
Oh, fuck, so this...
Yeah.
I'm not sure. This might make you feel good, or might make you not feel good, I'm not sure, but my mum told me to pass on a compliment to you. Apparently you remind her very much in a good way of Small Army.
Oh.
She thinks you have a similar energy and inventiveness as Small Army. I did clarify that. I went, don't you just mean Amelia Watson? But no, she meant Small Army, apparently. She feels that is your energy.
I don't know how to think of that.
I didn't know either, so I passed it on, but I think it was meant as a compliment. Let's be honest, she's basically a chaos god, but does basically do it, broadly speaking, for good.
Good Chaos God don't really go together, but I understand what you're saying.
Yes, they do technically.
Hmm?
Technically speaking, there's nothing preventing a chaos god from being good.
They just like chaos. But good chaos.
Well, calling them Chaos Gods even in and of itself is a misnomer. They're more the entities of primordial annihilation, fabrics of key parts of the universe. It's just that
I think
chaos
that's
is
Warhammer
a
40. I think that's Warhammer 40k chaos gods, rather than just mythological gods of chaos.
the other ones.
Mythological gods of chaos tend to be the primordial before there was things god.
Mm-hmm.
Hence where we get the term chaos from.
Mhm.
A primordial, technically, god being. No, stop trying to break the leaf.
I
Right.
think this is something which Foxo's going to have to think about for quite a while to work out whether it was a compliment, and if so, how she should respond to it.
Right. So without further ado, let
Pretty
us
much.
let us actually get on with the job. So on Discord, Tung asks, question 1, how effective would Bombardino Crocodile be in World War II? And he's expanded on the question from last week. He is a sentient B-29 with unlimited bomb load, a crocodile head, and enhanced maneuverability. I mean, ignoring the crocodile head bit, you've got a B-29 with an unlimited bomb load. Okay, I mean, that's just flatten everything until you just run out of fuel, I guess, and have to go home.
I'm just wondering about the fighter pilot's perspective on having a crocodile head snapping at them.
You won't really get close enough for it to matter.
I mean,
No, I definitely would not. Nice way. Under what circumstance would you see that flying in the air and think, you know what, I'm going to attack that head on?
No,
And
you
get
gotta come
close
in
to
from
it.
behind or the side, yeah. In fact, what you're probably going to try to do is you're probably going to do a diving pass from above, because that way he can't get you.
Well,
Yeah.
what era of World War II as well? Because for a good portion of the time, there's going to be nothing that could get up to a B-29.
Yeah, that's true as well.
In which case, he's
I don't-
always above you, coming down on you. He could add a new air defense role for that B-29, because engaging other bombers,
That would be fun.
and that snap, snap. Snap, snap goes a Betty.
Okay, I'm not angry at the fact that that is... I am not angry at the fact that that is, been Americanized quite well. That is acceptable to me.
Mhm.
But you
What?
don't need to ping me, Yuki. I'm reading chat. I do in fact read the chat.
On a rare occasion.
I'm better at it at ramblings because I'm not doing anything else. So let me just very right. So hamana. Right. So, Bowmill Boy asks, and this is actually a good question for Alex to talk about for a minute while I'm just writing up the guest list to pin. Bowmill Boy asks, was the renounced 444-inch the first triple 3-gun mount in naval history? And if not, what was?
It's not the first, but that's actually disputed. There are variations on pickle guns and various other things which have free barrels, but there's a whole dispute in that there's an Italian one, I think, which was the first one made, but there was an Austrian one which was the first one fitted. And there's a dispute as to therefore which one is the first, because is it first because it's the first one made, or is it the first because it's the first one fitted to a ship? And then we have the British with various other things and the French with various things. The thing is about the 444-inch is it's singularly terrible, but leave that to one side. It was the attempt to try and go, well, you know, we've got twin 4-inch. The only way to make a mount better is to make it a triple 4-inch, and then it's going to be better. And then they realised, hang on, that's just made it so unwieldy and so annoying that it's actually not going to do the job we wanted to do. And originally, of course, it was supposed to be an anti-destroyer system, but when something is problematic enough for aiming and firing and complicated enough for getting in the way of things, as the triple mount turned out to be, that's why they end up focusing in on the twin mounts. And that's honestly why the 444-inch and all these things end where they do. And actually causes a problem in the Royal Navy because there is a big debate with the 6-inch gun, let alone the 8-inch gun, and it was if the 1616s had any issues, the Royal Navy would undoubtedly presume that triple mounts were just cursed and just gone with twin mounts from there on. They honestly did worry that it wasn't going to work, and okay, when you're scaling it up to a turret, you've got more space, so they can work it out, and the guns are treated more individually, so things work out. Rather than a mount with a sort of a very much a manual system as a 4 inches. But yeah, they caused issues. Troopermans often do, because they increase the complexity of the situation quite dramatically.
Why that's forest on fire?
Hmm.
Mhm.
I think there's a possibility that Foxo is still trying to work out the small army thing.
Well, that probably as well, but possibly other things.
That's either going to create. That's only either going to turn out with small army becoming her new spirit animal and going to cause you more trouble in life, Dragon. I should give you that heads up. Or she's going to spend the next week confused by it.
Possibly both.
Quite possibly.
I very
both.
much do not discount the possibility of both.
Yeah, that is. You are a sensible soul.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Next
it
question,
might
please.
sense.
Right, so yes. Next question. Typical Gunner Officer on Discord asks, what is the thought process on having slow propeller-based aircraft turn sideways and open up with their miniguns and cannon, aka the Spectre gunship, or just the fixed-wing gunship concept in general? Why is the US one of the only few that operates Spectre gunships as a CAS platform? Do you think a gunship, especially the A-47 in Vietnam, or the succeeding AC-130 afterwards, would never survive in a highly contested airspace or airspace with anti-aircraft systems? Well, the whole thing with the C-47 is that the original concept was that it was a way to get a large amount of firepower loitering over an area for a long time to enable on-call fire support at the drop of a hat. The AC-130 is similar in role, but as the US has gotten involved less and less in peer-on-peer and more in counterinsurgency, it's basically become a platform that's basically perfect for that role. It can hover for hours at a time over a target area and provide very accurate fire support to troops on the ground at a cost per flight hour that greatly exceeds a lot of other platforms. The only problem is you kind of wouldn't want to use it in an airspace where, you know, there's a ton of man pads or, God forbid, I don't know, an S-300 battery knocking around. You could use it, but you'd have to go in and seed aircraft.
There's something with you that I think your phraseology you need to clear up there. Because you said a cost per flight hour that greatly exceeds. Now, I realise you're meaning it's better value for money.
Yeah, no, you don't. I didn't mean exceeds, did I? I meant.
But when you say exceeds,
yeah, no, I don't mean
sounds like it's
greater than. Yeah, I don't mean greater than, do I? No, I mean cost per flight hour that is much more economic. Yeah, it's undercuts.
Undercuts most of their opponents. Most of their counterparts.
Because if you have a choice between a Spectre gunship being on station for a couple of hours and calling in a flight of F-15s, F-16s, or a flight of A-10s, not only will it cost you far less to have the AC-130 on hand, but the AC-130 will be on hand for a lot longer.
Plus, there are other advantages with an AC-130.
Yeah.
Whilst, yes, there are some obvious external signs, it's far easier to hide an AC-130 on a flight line than it is an F-16 or F-15.
Mm-hmm. Go on, Foxel.
The AC-130 is essentially a mobile firebase to some degree.
That's kind of the whole point of the aeroplane gunship concept.
Yeah, and it's like one thing the US Army Air Force learned over Vietnam is they will take losses, but they're more useful, even if you lose them, than not having them.
They're just generally platforms that provides better fire on call, mostly because it's always pointed at the target. It's not like a standard aircraft where it has to set up a pattern to come in for an attack. And generally, it also generally supports more firepower than a helicopter as well. It's very good for assisting behind the line troops.
Or
where they
troops,
could slowly-
isolated from access to other fires.
Yeah, and generally it's great because you could walk them out of said situation with
Mhm.
constant firepower.
It's a mobile fire base.
But the caveat is, of course, it's a very situational weapon system. You
It's
can't.
as vulnerable to aircraft as other fire bases.
Yes, but it's more vulnerable than.
Because they've proven to be quite survivable against manpad threats.
Well, yeah, manpads can be dealt with in limited numbers as long as your flares hold out. But I wouldn't rate its odds against gun-based AA of significant power, as in stuff like Gepard or Tunguska. And I definitely wouldn't want to be in range of a radar-guided surface-to-air battery of any degree of competence.
Hell,
Hey.
some dude with random 40mm Bofors in the backyard might post a thread.
Yeah.
I mean, they're proven effective against Soviet surplus anti-aircraft guns, so...
Yeah, the ZSU-23 is... Honestly, the problem with ZSU-23 is it's actually too small a weapon to really... Especially once you've got the Super AC-130s with their much more powerful engines. You kind of went, oh, you have a 23mm AA gun. That's nice. You enjoy that. I'm just gonna go up.
Eat one or 5 airburst.
And it's not even that. It's not even that. It's just like I'm just gonna go up, and now you just physically can't get your rounds to me.
Yeah. But it's also a very niche system. It's paradoxically.
It's highly effective for supporting special operations.
Yeah, but it's one of the things to be economical requires a large transport fleet.
Yeah, and generally that is one thing the US has.
Yeah.
Unlike most other countries.
Okay. Right, okay, I've got the information. I've got the information I need. 9631 asks on YouTube if the Germans bought a pair of Tordenskjold-class ships from Norway. Well, technically they weren't built by Norway, they were built for Norway. By Armstrong, but hey-ho. Just wanted to put that in there. The Jacob van Hemsrik and the Konig Regentes one of the Konig Regentes class from the Dutch. To go with the 8 coast defense ships they have. How much does 4 more help? I mean, they don't really... I mean, my first question would be why? Why are the Germans, in my opinion, wasting money on buying ships from abroad when they can already build ships at home of similar capability and displacement? You're just denying your own dockyard workers work. I mean, if it's the
only sensible reason would be if there was an issue in the supply management and I needed things urgently. We need to have these ships available in the next 6 months.
And it gets worse.
And we can't do anything.
Because if they're buying them from Norway and the Dutch, those ships are vital to the Norwegians and the Dutch, so they're not going to let them go except at extortionate prices.
Oh yeah, it will be extortionate. You'll be funding the Norwegian Navy for the next 16 years.
The Dutch might even be
if
able
you're
to build.
Lucky.
The Dutch might even be able to afford to build.
Oh, the Dutch will be building a full-size battleship.
Pre-dreadnought, yeah, they'll build a pre-dreadnought instead of
Probably a couple of them, but they can be money they'll charge.
Yeah, it just
be the best deal in a century.
I feel like some context is missing from this question because the question is how much more does 4 help? I mean, you've got 4 more ships, but 2 of them, the ones from Norway, don't have German guns. The Dutch ones have some German guns, so they're okay. But the British ones mean you have to then buy in ammunition from overseas, or stop building ammunition for guns you don't service. They don't really fit with the Siegfrieds or the Odins because they're a little bit all these ships are a little bit faster. I mean, they could form their own little like battle line of 16 knot combatants, but they'll still be leaving the other 8 ships chugging along at 14 knots behind them.
You probably would have them form a sort of fast squadron scenario where you'd keep the fleet to roughly 13 knots, and then battle speed you'd bring up to 14 knots, and then when you got the enemy in a position where you want to divide their fire, you send off the fast squadron at 16 knots.
Yeah.
To chug away.
But in terms of how much
and
it would
just
help...
the enemy's fire and capabilities.
Yeah, but in terms of how much it would help, if you want my honest answer, it's a negative. You've funneled money out of Germany to foreign buyers for no real benefit than 4 extra coast defense ships for a price which you could have built 4 proper pre-dreadnoughts, aka the historical Brandenburgs.
No, fleet. I think you're grossly underestimating how much Norway and Netherlands would charge. It wouldn't be for the cost of 4 pre-dreadnoughts. You'd be lucky if you get it for the cost of 8 pre-dreadnoughts that Germany could build themselves.
Yeah, this is the thing. It's just you're getting 4. To be blunt, mediocre coast defense ships. Even at this point, you can see that the navies around the world are starting to go, is this really working? For Norway, for a nation like Norway, you can sort of see the sense in sticking to the coast defense concept. They've got the terrain, the naval terrain, to make use of it, and they don't have overseas possessions. But even the Dutch are starting to realize the whole concept is falling out of capability rather rapidly. So you've bought 4 ships whose shelf life will be exceptionally limited, especially when the Russians and the French are sat there going, "Oh, well, you've bought 4 additional coast defense ships. That's cute, Germany. You have those. I'm just going to go back to building proper battleships."
To be fair, the Germans can always point to Hoche and go, "Well, you have that." And the French just have to shuffle away, looking like. But everyone else can, yes. And then there's also Carnot.
Well, nobody likes Carnot. Even I don't like Carnot. Carnot makes Hoche look like a modern art masterpiece.
No, but Carnot is cute.
So Knight
Hoche
says these
isn't.
4 ships are not second-hands, they're new builds. Okay, so that means they're slightly less costly. But the question would still be, why? Why would you buy these from foreign yards?
Knight, at this point, I am starting to consider calling you Delilah.
What?
Honestly. Can someone please explain to Fleet the song before I have to start explaining to him? Because the fact he doesn't know what the reference was in that phrase worries me.
No. You dug this hole.
Okay,
Well, I.
there's a song where the line goes, why, Delilah?
That's the reference you were going
Sung by
for?
Tom Jones.
That's the
Yes,
reference you...
because-
Really?
Honestly, I keep wanting to ask Knight why, so I'm therefore going to call him Delilah.
You know what? Okay, now I understand, because of course I know that song. Tom Jones is a legend. But I just didn't... The connection...
It took you long enough.
The wires did not click in my brain at all. That was very much a reference you had to have explained to you. Also,
I'm fairly sure. Please, everyone in the chat, put whether you needed that reference explained to you, or whether you actually understood the reference to one of the most famous songs ever sung. Especially if you're British.
Hello, Leslie. Hello, Knight. Hello, Bowmeal Boy. Hello, Timu. All that stuff. Nice of you to all join us. Don't forget, check out the guest list. Check out the guest lists as well. What did you say, Dragon?
Sorry, that's just nice to separate one of their questions into 3 separate parts.
I
And
think
all
now we're going to have to
one
start doing Tom
question.
Jones questions for fleets to improve his general knowledge.
I mean, come on, it would be not unusual
There we
if
go.
I didn't know anything about Tom Jones, would it, Alex?
True.
Eh?
That was so forced, it was disturbing.
I try. Diplomatic officer asks, why didn't the US have any forward air controllers on the ground like the British did in World War II? That they did. Do you think it's the reason why the US have more friendly fire incidents in the air? The incidents between US and IRAF aircraft conducting friendly fire were pretty even across the board. It's just the nature of CAS support at the time. Why is it on and off relationship with the US with a forward air controller? It wasn't. They kind of adopted the concept in World War II and stuck with it. They implemented the forward air controller in Vietnam and then stopped applying it after the war's end. That they didn't. They're still there. This whole question just isn't. None of it is correct. The US did have forward air controllers in World War II.
Technology's changed.
Yeah.
And the nature of the forward air controller has changed.
Yeah, but the same role still applied. It may not have been called the same thing, but there was usually an army officer with either battalion or company command who would have... not army officer. An Air Force officer who would have a line back to frontal aviation. It's not exactly what we would call forward air controllers in the same way that you would get later, just because in World War II you couldn't really get that level of responsiveness until the end of the war, so beyond summer of 44, because at that point you've got enough sorties on a daily basis to basically ring up the chain and go, yes, there are aircraft in the area, we can task them. But prior to that, you can't really get that level of fire support from the air in terms of that level of flexibility on any side. Just because of the technological limitations of the time and lack of airframe numbers. In terms of friendly fire, it's World War II. Friendly incidents of aircraft attacking their own side are commonplace across the battle space of World War II for pretty much all the sides involved in the conflict. Down to the simple fact that, well, you're in a plane, you're moving at speed. Unless it's pretty darn clear what you're looking at, then yeah, it's gonna... There's a reason why you see at certain points during the war the countries strapping giant flags to the top of their trucks and tanks to avoid friendly fire from their own aviation. The Germans did it, the Russians did it. Yeah.
Pretty much everyone was painting huge amounts of things on the systems to try and do that.
Remember the Australians painted kangaroos on the tops and sides of their captured Italian tanks?
Mm-hmm. The whole point is it's got to be something. It's got to be something that a pilot can see before ordnance release. Easily see before ordnance release.
It's more than just pilots, but any Allied forces can hopefully see before they shoot you.
Yeah.
Hence the giant white star on the engine decks in certain Cromwells.
Yep. Because the White Star was decided it would be the Allied symbol, because it was easy to recognize. And it was just commonplace, you know.
Just like how the Invasion Strike 4 aircraft is.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the other way.
I need your hammer a second.
Which hammer?
The one I gave you.
Right.
I'm going to make it better.
Back to YouTube questions quickly. 96831, could the Type 42 destroyer HMS Sheffield's twin-rail GS-30 Mod 0 launchers and her early Sea Dart surface-to-air missiles have shot down the Exocets that were fired at her? Theoretically, it's possible.
Well, she's certainly a nice lady of a ship, but
She could have a crack at it, but her chances are not what I'd call. I wouldn't like to play cards with those chances. I'll put it that way. It's possible.
well, if you're aboard, you wouldn't. If you're aboard her under those circumstances, you wouldn't say you'll stay until tomorrow, would you?
No, you wouldn't. She can launch against the incoming, but the chances of a successful intercept are very low.
No, you need a Seawolf for that particular version of tender loving care.
Yeah. I know. Just to clarify, when I say very low, I don't mean, oh, there's a 1 in 10. No. You're not understanding that when I say very low there, audience. No, when I say very low, I mean every single thing has to go right.
Yeah.
Like I say, it's a theoretical possibility, but... Yeah, I wouldn't like
Basically, you need to be surrounded by time with the ability to pluck the right strings.
Yep. Right. Tung asks, Question 2. In light of Russia's favourite alt history novel idea, you were tossed into Adolf Hitler's body in 1933, right after he was appointed Chancellor. Your goal is to make Germany great again while avoiding the real Nazi regime's crimes and failures. How would you achieve this, or is it impossible after 33? We're kind of already too far gone. Too much blood has already been spilt. And Poppadancy novels are this whole genre is something that's come out of Russia recently. It's a whole swathe of nationalist alt history. Yes, in the last 20 years, they've been churning out these Poppadancy or person displaced in time novels for the last 20 to 30 years now. Since the fall of the Soviet Union, in fact. And the whole goal of them is basically to usually kill the British. That is the whole goal here, usually. Yes. Because we are apparently the cause of everything wrong with Russia. Not the Americans. Us.
Oh yeah, we are the old enemy. We are the ones who stopped them we stopped them getting control of India. We stopped them conquering the whole world. We're the reason they are in the state they're in.
Yeah. So apparently,
we created the Americans to fight them.
Yeah. So if I am in the body of that man, well, thing is, I could
see one problem.
I can't speak German for a start.
Well, no, it's even beyond the ability to speak German. Let's say you suddenly get the ability to speak German because you've been, jumping into that body. We've been over this before. You have the political leadership abilities of. Well, I don't want to be quite that rude.
No, but of all the places to throw somebody like me, the Nazi
you do
German
not have good
politicking
political skills.
Yeah, like even if I do disagree with you, I think my skills are adequate at least. But even I will admit, you have to be an exceptionally savvy.
I'm going to ask
you have to be an exceptional.
Who know you best on this panel.
They're biased.
What their view is in this area.
They're biased to heck.
Fleet
Dragon, Foxo.
Right. So while I will agree I'm slightly biased, but Fleet, how many times have I been able to convince the world to turn against you in Hoy games because of your politics?
Apparently, he says. German ability and knowledge will be provided, including the real Hitler's leadership. I don't want the real Hitler's leadership, politely.
Got the real Hitler's leadership, you're probably picking up the real Hitler's politics, so...
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, there's not... The problem is, if I try to fight against the inertia, the Nazi hierarchy will chew me up and spit me out. Hitler was not irreplaceable. He was irreplaceable because he kept doing what everyone wanted to do. And was a central force the party could rally round, and the German state could rally round, and through it, conduct the party's wishes. If I start trying to, say, we're not going to dissolve the elections, we're going to have free and fair elections going forwards, and, hope that the Nazis get voted out. Yeah, that's going to last all of 5 seconds. Until either Goering or Himmler or somebody puts a bullet through my skull.
Yeah, don't take this the wrong way. But you're kind of now trying to give an excuse to Hitler.
What? No, I'm not.
You are. You just said he's not at fault for the situation. It's the way the situation was that made him it.
No, that's not
Don't
what I
get me
said.
wrong.
That's not what I said at all.
He created the system.
Yeah, that's not what I'm saying at all.
Yeah.
What I said was he's not irreplaceable, and if he tries to go against the system he created, which he has no intention of doing historically.
Therefore, by that phrasing, he's forced to do what he does because that's what the system's requiring him.
No, that's Alex. That's a
it.
massive leap of logic that fundamentally misses the whole 5 of the points I just made.
That's what you're saying.
No, it isn't.
Again,
Yeah,
Foxo,
I must admit, you have gone sort of Twitterati levels of logic there. Like, I'm not one for backing Fleet normally, but like, Clark, please never go full Twitterati. It doesn't suit me.
But yeah, I can't. Yeah, like I said, it's not really a question I'm comfortable actually touching at all because, well, being in any position of power in that regime is just no. Just no. Long story.
There's easier ways to get me killed.
Yeah. Long story short, I basically hope that my best plan is set up enough chaos so that the regime collapses in on itself in a rather bloody civil war.
Oh no, it's going to do that anyway. Because this is before Bormann and the left-leaning wing of the Nazi Party gets purged.
So basically what I need to do, in essence, is stoke that conflict rather than nip it in the bud.
Yeah, you have to fail the Night of the Long Knives, and then Germany goes kabang.
Good. Excellent. Fantastic. That's what we'll do.
The SA and the SS at this point, yeah, the Wehrmacht isn't really a threat, so yeah, kabang.
Yep.
The Wehrmacht is always a threat.
But it's more of the SA and the SS, they're not, because the Wehrmacht would have whipped itself apart.
Not necessarily. The army at that point was still fairly solid. This is why Hitler was so worried about the president. Because he knew if the president ordered it, the army would do what the president asked.
Yeah. Well, by the time
So basically, if you manage to have a civil war, an open public civil war between the SS and the SA, Hindenburg probably orders the army to crush it.
Mm-hmm. And hopefully at that point, job done, game over. Right, moving on from that incredibly awkward and somewhat uncomfortable question.
Yeah.
Stephen Mayer asks, is there any conceivable scenario that the Western Allies win the race to Berlin outside the Berlin airlift not happening? What other events would change if the USSR are second to Berlin? The problem you've got is that, I believe, as far as I'm aware, it didn't fundamentally matter who got to Berlin first. The Allied zones of control had... apart from prestige. But I think the Allied zones of control in Germany had already been pre-planned.
They'd be pre-planned, but as Churchill did say to Roosevelt, they have been penciled, not inked.
That is a good way of putting it. There is a way to get the Allies...
If we're the ones who've liberated that territory, then we've liberated that territory.
Yeah. There is a way to handle this. You basically have to have Adolf Hitler kind of not commit to Kursk, nor to any of his counteroffensives in the West. You basically have to have him go full bore into throwing as much meat and metal at the Russians as possible to slow them down. Ideally, you also probably don't even want Citadel. you don't want him to throw the vast amounts of materiel that he does at Citadel. You want to preserve that for a long, grinding, attritional conquest. Sorry, attritional defense as the Russians come west. If that happens, the Allies are
Your
going to
other
have...
option is you collapse your forces during Market Garden.
Yeah, success in Market Garden might actually lead to... success, but... Honestly, the way to guarantee it is combine the two. Collapsing Market Garden plus more focus in the east. That's how you'd guarantee it. There probably would be 2 Berlins, but the reason there would still be is because that would basically be where the border would be. So West Germany would run up to and through Berlin, if that makes sense.
Not much of East Germany then.
No, not much of an East Germany at all. Which means
At that point, what's left of East Germany might get folded into Poland
it's possible.
Yeah.
by the Russians.
That'll cause complications.
That's a very unstable post-war Poland, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily.
I mean, they are a Soviet Poland. It's time for some good old-fashioned, forced deportations.
Yeah, but it's also Soviet Poland.
True.
It's what happens to it is an interesting scenario. It will be an interesting scenario to work through.
Typical officer on Discord. Opinions on the Shimakaze class destroyer. Do you think it's the best destroyer in World War II in terms of torpedo armament, speed, and main gun, even better than the British tribal class? No, it's not the best in main gun armament. No, it's
Where would you even get the idea about it being better in main gun armament?
Yeah, that's not even that would be obvious just from looking.
3 twin 127s, the same 127s that they've had on pretty much all of their shit.
Yeah, it's three twin 5-inch versus 4 twin 4.5. It's not even a contest. Sorry, 4.7. Sorry, it's not even a contest. It would be obvious just from looking at them. Gunnery officer, I like your questions sometimes, but sometimes you do post questions that do make me go.
I think Gunnery Officer is wanting you to say how great the British are.
So he does keep asking me questions like that.
That's a rigged question to get you to say how great the British are.
I quite enjoy the Shimakaze class. Well, I say the Shimakaze class. I should say Shimakaze.
As a concept, she's
not even a class.
Yeah, she's a good concept. She's a very, very good concept. Because she basically is the Japanese looking at the sort of war they're planning to fight and going, right, we want it's a faster version of their current destroyers that carries slightly more torpedo tubes.
Slightly?
Okay.
Excuse me?
Let's be fair.
It's another.
She adds an extra 5 tubes.
It's just another. It's just another quintuple. It's an increase in torpedo firepower, definitely, but
it's going from like 8 to 15. Even going from the Japanese destroyers with 10, that's still 5 extra torpedoes.
That's not as big of a jump as you're making it out to be.
It's 50%.
It is, but either way,
and also that's 15 torpedo tubes with reloads.
More importantly, these are not your standard 21-inch. These are 24-inch torpedoes.
These are 610mm torpedo tubes.
Okay, right.
If you're talking about ridiculous torpedo firepower, Shimakaze has it.
Yeah. Yeah, either way. So, the point I'm trying to make is, she's got a very clearly defined role.
Yes.
She's supposed to be
the destroyer cone of a T-class submarine.
Yeah. She's a fast ambush predator.
Yes.
And she probably would have done that role fairly well,
right,
if she'd have had a chance to. But she's not a world-beating destroyer. and definitely not the best in World War II. She's far too much of a one-trick pony to be the best. Arguably the best.
Right.
The candidates for the best destroyer is a toss-up between the Fletchers, the Gearings, and the Fletchers, the Gearings, and the not the Battles, the one that came before the Battles. Darings.
Darings come
The
after.
tribals.
Sorry. Well, no, the Tribals don't have enough torpedoes to really. The Tribals aren't enough of an all-rounder.
Then it's the battles are the ones that come after them.
Thank you. That's it. Yeah. So it's a toss-up between those three. Because they're good. They are excellent all-round destroyers that can be called upon to do basically anything you want them to do.
Yep.
Once again, sorry, going back to this point, because I don't think Fleet. The Japanese ships before this carry quad launchers.
Why are you getting
Two
stuck?
quads.
Why are you getting stuck on this?
Because I'm really because I don't think you're necessarily looking at individual statistics as much as you should.
I am. I'm just not that overly concerned.
The only other ship that has even close to this torpedo power was some of the original Somers class, which, in my opinion, is actually a more balanced loadout, where they carried 12 torpedoes and with 8 5-inch and 2
Whoa.
quad turrets. And not 2 quad turrets, that would be fun to see on a destroyer, in 4 twin turrets.
It carried
Hmm.
12 because it uses side torpedo mounts.
No, the
Center
Somers,
lines.
Somers carry all center line. Or at least one variant of the Somers class did. I believe Somers herself had, 3 quad torpedoes all amid. But also, there's a lot more that goes into Shimakaze than you're thinking. Technically, I think your fleet. She actually has the potential to be one of the best destroyers of the war. I would actually say.
Okay,
Right, keep in mind, right. Let me finish here, Foxer, for a sec. Keep in mind, Shima is laid down in 1941.
Mm-hmm.
Gearings and battles are a fair bit later.
Yes, that doesn't change
So,
that fact.
I would argue if you can actually get the Shimas in 42 like they were wanting, especially if you can get the initial 16, they actually have potential to be very good.
I'd still take a Fletcher
Also,
over
they still
a
carry
Shimakaze.
6 5-inch guns.
A Fletcher's still
Yeah,
better than
imagine
a
the
Shimakaze.
Shimakaze's at Guadalcanal.
Yeah, it's just.
Imagine them in those night battles.
Yeah, it's
Now,
just.
I do think their experimental power plant is a little bit of a silly thing. It worked, I'll admit, but it's also a maintenance pain.
And that's the
But
problem.
they can go 41 knots.
Yes, but therein lies the problem. If to be
Well, yeah, but
considered to be the best
Shimakaze
destroyer.
herself was supposed to be an experimental ship.
Yeah, this again also works against her. Oh my lord!
But Fleet, you're effectively saying the entire class would be... No, because...
Use your words.
Okay, right. A question,
Right.
Dragon. Were her guns full purpose?
Yes.
Technically,
Therefore,
To a
I would
limited
argue
degree.
for the mid to late war, Shimakaze's better destroyer than a tribal. The tribals are better in surface actions, but you can't deny that the lack of dual-purpose guns really cripples them when it comes to air defense.
the problem you've got is that these are the Japanese
That
twins.
does lead to
the
the
problem-
replacement of the X-mount with a twin 4-inch.
The problem you've got is
Yeah,
that
but
these are the Japanese
a
5-inch.
pair of 4-inch, as an anti-aircraft role, is inferior to 6.
Um,
No,
The
problem is-
no,
no, the problem
not
is
these,
these-
not these
no.
5-inch.
No, these are the Japanese twin 5-inch. They're dual purpose on a good day with a following wind when the gods are in their favor. The performance of these mounts in an anti-aircraft role consistently across the war was abysmal across the Japanese destroyer fleet.
They are quote-unquote anti-aircraft gun because they have quote-unquote high angle. They could point up.
Yeah,
But
they're really not
overall,
dual purpose
I
mounts.
wouldn't say she... Right. Trying to actually fully... She's definitely not the best torpedo... In terms of... If we're going off category, in terms of torpedo armament, yeah, she's probably the best torpedo destroyer of the war. No other destroyer carries 15 24-inch torpedo tubes. It's kind of hard to argue against just sheer amount. I believe there's only one which I need to double check its existence.
Honestly, despite carrying less torpedoes, give me a Mogador instead of. I'd rather have a Mogador.
So there's only one.
Of course you would. You'd want a friendship.
She's
Yeah,
better in
But
every
there's only
way.
one other ship that has an equivalent amount of torpedoes, or one other class, and that's the Benham class of 36, which carries 16 torpedo tubes of 21-inch. But that's 2 launchers per side, not center line. So you have to swing around, and even then and then they're only 21-inch. In terms of gun power, she's definitely not the best, because you've got stuff like tribals, and you've got the others which can do things. Her speed is very impressive, but the French would like a word with you.
What?
Admittedly, the French also had maintenance hell on their boilers and their engines.
Not just that, they also have extra tonnage.
Even better than a British tribal?
No.
In a torpedo fight, I'll give it to the Shimakaze.
Good luck surviving to get into a torpedo fight.
Well, no, like, assuming for whatever reason they decide we're going to be honourable gents about this and only use torpedoes,
Yes.
then yeah, I'll give it to the Shima.
Yes, in that one particular
not going to do
outside
that.
circumstance.
Yeah,
yes.
but it's more the fact
No.
that right, okay. But when are we looking at the tribals as built?
Yeah.
Or by
They
late
do-
war?
They're very different destroyers for different roles.
And this again brings it back. To be considered ideally for the best destroyer category, you need to be an all-rounder. Hence why I focused on things like the Fletchers, the Battles. All-rounder destroyers built for all-rounder roles, to be the mainline escorts to do anything required of them.
The
rather
Battles
than...
weren't all
rather-
rounders. They were built to succeed the tribals as the principal fleet offensive destroyer. I need to tip of the spear job. They have a better torpedo fit, but that's mainly because they are bigger. And they're able to be bigger because war's begun. And so treaty limits are gone. But they also put on them twin 4.5s, which are BD mounts rather than UD mounts, so between deck rather than upper deck mounts. Which means they're from the capital ships production line because they have them available. And that's why they only get 4 guns, not 6 or 8, because they're too heavy. So you instead cram the aft with 40mm.
We did build a lot of war emergency destroyers during the war, didn't we? Good lord.
Yeah,
We did.
literally the point of the war emergency destroyers.
Well, yes, I know that, but
If you want to look up one which is called, or it's one of the S's, and it's it's armed with twin 4.5s forward. It's basically they use it as a testbed for the battles.
I still do think, unfortunately, when you've got the Fletchers sitting there smugly, I kind of have to accept, the Fletcher. The Fletcher's just sat there, all singing, all dancing, and actually is as good as the hype.
My only issue with the Fletchers is their arrangement.
What do you mean?
He doesn't like the
Going-
singles.
5 singles.
Oh, the singles are fantastic. And,
No.
I mean, flexibility of fire when engaged by aircraft and in close action, but also a decent broadside for a destroyer.
There's
Yeah,
also-
but the trouble is, the 5-inch they're armed with is not really that good at doing anti-ship work.
And at that point, I'd still rather go with what they do go with in the end, which is 3 twin, which give
mean-
them superior arcs of fire. It gives them an extra
Yes.
gun, and it actually allows them to be a lot more easily to work around it. Because having that 5th gun basically be in the middle is awkward.
Doesn't really help you with things.
It's why I don't like the battles when they had their one 4.7-inch in the middle.
I mean, the
issues with that as
gearings
well.
and the R&M Summoners were
It was
definitely
usually a single
the
4-inch, and it was usually used for firing star shells and that sort of role. So the 4.5s could concentrate on firing
Yeah. Yeah,
what they needed to fire.
the Summoners and the gearings are
I'm going to
definitely
be
the
slightly
refinement.
annoying.
I
My
can hear.
headphones keep beeping. My headphones keep beeping, so I'm gonna go find out why they're beeping, and I'll be back after I found it out.
Yes.
Okay.
That's fine. We can crack through. I'm fairly. Oh no, we can't. Quickly before you go, Bumble Boy asks, why does Dr. Clark follow the McDonald's UK Instagram account? It's a really quick question.
I have no idea. I did.
Well, there
But
you are.
probably if I did, probably if I am following it, it's because at some point there was a promotion in the past which involved following it to get a free burger, and there have been times in my life where getting a free burger has been useful, or just been nice. Take care.
Right. See you
Was
in a
it just a Monopoly event?
It could
Yes, it probably was a Monopoly event because I always play those because I always find it a lot of fun. Basically, I eat about 2/3 of my McDonald's, and in a year I eat during the Monopolies event.
Oh yeah,
Same.
McDonald's every day.
Basically, it's the Monopoly event, and I'm usually at that point traveling away from home, so it's a case of I have to eat out anyway. I might as well try and win the Monopoly on McDonald's.
Yes.
Bye for now then.
Right,
Toodles.
bye. Typical Gunnery Officer asks on Discord, question 4, what if in 1891 the future Nicholas II was assassinated by Japan by that Japanese person in the so-called Otsu incident? Would this action be the casus belli for the Russo-Japanese War, and would this basically lead to a larger war? Well, both sides are going to be sat there confused going, well, now what? Because neither really has... Well, the Japanese have an ocean-going fleet in the Far East, but the Russians are only starting to get on that.
It'll be an interesting situation because we're still looking at the Genoko era of the Japanese Navy.
Mm-hmm. And also, it would kind of... It just...
This would be interesting because
because there's a Russian... he's come by ship to Japan. So... there would... It just... I'm struggling to think of how this escalates, because it was an independent attack, from what we know. The Japanese government treated it with all possible seriousness. The Emperor visited him, treated him with all possible respect. I genuinely struggle to think... yeah, I'm genuinely trying to...
Blood in the water, maybe?
I mean, it's possible.
Because this is the time period where Russia's doing funny things in China and wants to have dominion in the Pacific.
It's possible. But it's one of those things where I'm looking at it. The problem is the whole point of this is that at this point, Russo-Japanese relations were still fairly cordial. Bear in mind, it's not until we're still 10 years away from the start of the rise in tensions, which happens over Manchuria. Both sides are currently not in Manchuria. The Japanese have their protectorate in Korea, and the Russians have their territory in the east, but neither side is yet encroaching on the other's claims. So there is...
1891? I don't think...
Yeah, there is no flashpoint.
We have Korea yet.
I will have a look. Not that one. Oh, yeah, sorry, it's not till 1894. In that case, they don't even have 1894. Yeah, they don't even have. Yeah, they don't even have Korea yet. So yeah, there's very little flashpoint here. I'm looking for a reason for there to be a war to kick off, but I can't find one. Especially not with the way the Japanese acted. In terms of actual reconciliation and proper punishment, and I am really struggling to find any reason the Russians would be insulted or offended or not considered sufficiently appeased. Especially with the efforts in contrition and recompense the Japanese made after the incident.
It's what you'd have to have a situation where the Japanese don't go through with that.
But the question at that point would be why wouldn't they? That would be the only reason they would do that would be if the attack was officially sanctioned, and they'd have to be kind of silly to do that when there are Russian warships anchored in one of their ports.
For another thing, I don't think Japan's really truly ready in 1891
They
to
are
fight
not.
a proper, well, quote unquote proper European power.
No. They were already the underdog against Russia in 1903, when the Russo-Japanese War starts. At this point, they're not even an underdog. They are, they're a little bit buggered.
They're
Like,
colony
yeah.
bait.
You have to remember, 1900s, like, by the time you get to the Russo-Japanese War, Japan has pretty much practically wrapped up its ultra-rapid, industrialization and westernization.
Mm-hmm.
1891? They're in the progress of doing that.
Yeah, they're still going.
Like, they're still working on... They recently just got their, magazine repeating rifles for their military.
Mm-hmm.
They just mass adopted the railroad, or is that earlier?
It's
Earlier.
earlier, but railroad's still a relatively fresh thing for Japan at the time.
Yeah,
but
although they're
just
expanding at a
fundamentally-
rapid rate because they took the British advice and built Cape Gauge. Standard gauge railways didn't come to Japan until the Shikansen appeared.
Yeah, fundamentally, it's just Japan is not in a state where it wants to challenge Russia. Even if Russia is a giant pile of steaming mess who probably will take a really long time just to mobilize enough units to, fight in the
East
yeah.
and get a fleet out there to deal with it.
And honestly, for the Russians, they're probably more interested in screwing around in Manchuria than, fighting a random island nation that they can't really do much to.
Yeah, at this point, they see Japan as they see Japan as a potential trading partner and just partner generally.
And fundamentally, if you're trying to, this will just sour any relationship down the road, and we might see more conflict in Manchuria in terms of
There might actually be British involvement in any Russo-Japanese war, because at that point, although not in the way you'd think, they might just go, right, sort it out. Because the British will be annoyed at the Japanese because, well, Victoria is not going to be happy the Japanese government sanctioned an attack on her nephew. Sorry, on her... No, not on her nephew. On her grandson.
The only thing I can think of is that Russia tries to press it to split off Japan from the UK
It's possible.
as a part of the Great Game. Just sort of try and isolate Japan from the UK, not to get at Japan, but to get at the UK. Try and split them from their de facto Eastern ally.
they're not allies yet.
Yeah, the Anglo-Japanese
they-
alliance isn't in place
They
yet.
do get along,
Yeah.
though.
But
do.
it's sort of,
Russia sees
The
them as a
unwritten-
Britain allied power.
yeah, it's very much a case of, we want you in case China starts doing something funny.
Mm-hmm. And as far as the outside world was concerned at this point, China was rearming and modernizing at a rapid rate. Like Japan was. Well, bear in mind,
Rapid
bear in
enough.
mind, as I said, as far as the outside world was concerned, lots of ironclads on order, lots of foreign rifles flowing into the country, Western-style regiments being raised. As far as the outside appearances were concerned, China was modernizing very, very, very rapidly. Now, of course, as we know, it was actually a paper tiger wrapped up in a mirage, but they didn't know that at the time.
Corruption, but if I remember correctly, there's agreements for going back to the Meiji Restoration, I think, of the British. It would have a British support. The British would have an agreement that if stuff went south in China, the China squadron could relocate to Japanese ports. So my thought would be, would Russia try and screw around to get that broken up? Because that would also be useful against Russia.
Mm-hmm. Right, so, next question. Knight6831 asks, if the British built AADE based on the Shakespeare-class destroyer leader and the Thornycroft V, Admiralty W with Thornycroft W class destroyers, a LRDE based on the Admiralty modified W, Admiralty W, Thornycroft V, Admiralty V, and destroyers, and an SRDE based on the Scott-class Shakespeare-class destroyers, and Admiralty V, Thornycroft W, Admiralty modified W, and Admiralty W class destroyers. How useful would they be? They have more boats, so they have more boats, so they do more with them. That's
Yeah, but if I remember correctly,
More
these are the
boats.
destroyers where Thornycroft goes, quick, give me that meth.
so. From what I see, it's an AA destroyer, a long range. Sorry, an AA destroyer escort, a long range destroyer escort, a SR and an SR destroyer escort, short range destroyer escort. So it's 4 more destroyer escort classes. I mean, you don't... Well, first of all, you don't really want to be specializing your destroyer escorts like that. That's a very good way to introduce inefficiency into the construction.
I'm just confused. These are just World War One destroyers that existed.
And he wants to build destroyer escorts based on them. But he doesn't say how many they're building
Yeah, that
either.
just means throw on. That just means throw on more anti-aircraft guns on it.
Yeah, it just means you have more... Well, basically, they have more ships, so they have more ships, so they have more ships.
No, they don't have more ships. These ships also served in World War II.
No, they're building new ones based on the old designs.
But why?
I don't know.
In what way? Okay, now I'm understanding the question now. Okay, how do these?
He basically
The
says
hard
anti-aircraft
superior
destroyer
to-
escort, long-range destroyer escort, and short-range destroyer escort. At that point, just build a destroyer escort. Why would
Hardy
you?
superior
why
to
would you-
like River
Yeah.
and Flowers.
Yeah, why would you go back to create an older design on an older hull when you're going to build something new? And why would you split it into 3 different categories? First of all, there's no such thing as an AA destroyer escort, since destroyer escorts armaments against aircraft were anemic at the best of times, and they could get better, but I wouldn't. If you're making an AA destroyer escort, congratulations. That destroyer escort probably has no recourse to submarine hunting, so it's already failed at its job. A long-range destroyer escort could be useful, but at that point, just make a bigger normal destroyer escort that just includes longer range into the package. Because if you're having to call it a specifically long-range destroyer escort, then you're sacrificing something else. At that point, again, capability falls, and you've wasted a lot of money for not much. And again, short-range destroyer escort. Why are you deliberately making a ship that can only be used at short range? Yes, you might gain some capability, but if you want to do something else with it, like, you know, a war on the scale of World War II might demand, you're shit out of luck. Because your short-range ship can't go anywhere. All three of these designs, while they will add more mass to the Royal Navy, are probably taking crews away from much better ships that could do the jobs they do better, without adding 3 new classes to the Royal Navy's inventory for not much benefit.
Like I said,
Also, Reaper, yes, you did.
what's
get
wrong with
skipped.
flowers and rivers?
Yeah.
I suspect Flea didn't even notice.
Oh, bugger me.
Mm.
Insanity rages at the wiki Wowls asks on Discord, you are the Japanese Navy in 1914 and you see a fleet of all the built IJN carriers of the interwar period to 1945, including the incomplete ships enter Tokyo Bay. How do you react? Pump the people aboard those carriers for information because they're entering Tokyo Bay, they're crewed. So the Japanese Navy will probably be bombarded with information, and that will basically dictate how their navy goes forward. And in fact,
They might not actually have crew. Just because they enter the bay does not mean they have crew.
Random floating hulks.
This wouldn't be the first time we've had a ship randomly sail into harbor
Mm.
with no one on board.
True.
I know.
So if they do have crew, then yes, exactly as you say. If they don't, they're going to be very, very, very confused. They have crews with info on how to operate them in the aircraft, then yeah. Then this is... Japan gets all the future knowledge they need.
Yeah. Unfortunately, at this point, Japan basically the treaties don't exist. Japan,
Also,
Japan
going,
has no.
How do we even maintain this?
Well, they don't. That's the fundamental thing. They learn what they can learn from the carriers, and they husband the ones they can husband as best they can. But
the big thing they could learn is future engineering technology,
and aviation as well.
or it's just the ships, right?
No, the aircraft come
say
back with them
aircraft.
apparently.
Okay. Then hey, that's quite a few aircraft someone could, take apart and figure out how it works.
You do. Excuse
Just
me.
the
I'm just gonna let
advanced
you
engine
keep. I'm gonna let you
technology is
keep
gonna be
nattering at that. I just have to. I'll be back in a second. I need to check on something.
Not so sure if there's much else to chatter about.
Let's just move on.
It would be cool. I don't know what question we're on though.
Well, if I've been correct, I think
it was a
that one's
Discord,
YouTube
so it
one.
has to be a YouTube one. Yeah.
For the panel who are familiar with Habitual Line Crosser, which of his characters would you most like to meet to chat with? Never heard of him.
It's the guy who basically poses different countries
Still no clue.
and make. I don't know how to explain this one.
You probably won't be able to. Even if you explain, I still have no clue who he is, so I can't really say.
Me neither.
It's the guy who made the raptor meme.
The what meme?
It's the guy who basically how to explain this?
Oh, Yuki, I'm
Oh,
cultured.
wait.
I'm just not uncultured like yourself.
He plays a personified
Is
character.
he the
of a
mentally
raptor.
deranged F-22 guy?
Yes.
Is he that
You know how little
civilian
that-
airliner?
You know how little that narrows it down?
Is he the civilian airliner guy?
Knight 631 says,
No.
you didn't ask when these ships were built into question. No, because the ships didn't you didn't provide it. So, and you just said built. So I assume
must-
you were
yeah,
building new. Like, am I supposed to know to ask that extra information?
I think you see, from
I'm
what I
wondering if it's
understand
really
from that question is
converting
he
the
meant
old
yeah.
ones,
That's
but they kind of already did this. Like,
And also,
from what I'm
built and
aware-
converted have two very different connotations.
Yeah, massively different.
that's
Yeah.
why I got really confused when
So did I.
I
He said
I
built.
was
I
like,
thought,
the
okay,
ship
they're
already
using the old.
exists. What do you mean?
So I have to. Yeah, okay, right, because in particular, conversion for the Second World War, long range escort, the WAIR type, and the short range type.
Hang on, now it gets even more confusing. Built new in World War One. So hang on.
they
So,
were
let me get
already
so
built.
let me get this straight. So versions of these ships based on these ships are built new for World War One, not World War Two. Am I reading that right?
Right, because the long-range escort of the V&W class were to support the Grand Fleet in actions in the North Sea. They were unsuitable for mid-ocean escort force. To role, they found them allocated in the Second World
for the
War
love
with
of-
speeds of over
Someone
20
is
knots. were
annoying
of
my
limited
dog.
value.
Excuse me.
Remedying the shortcomings, V&W were modified into long range to suit them into this. The small single boiler unit room was struck, resulting in space divided the fuel tanks into lower and accommodation upper. Then, not only did this both lower fuel consumption and increase bunkerage, provide much needed space for ballooning wartime crews. A and Y guns were landed and replaced with hedgehogs and depth chargers. Torpedo tubes were replaced by 12-pounder AA guns and 12mm Orlikans. New radars are right. The
So-
WAIR is assumed to actually be W-class anti-aircraft refit, where they had the main deck leveled, leaving only the funnels and aft shelter house. The armament was replaced with two twin 4-inch guns, 141 aft, with the
Okay.
Type 285 anti-aircraft
Let's-
radar,
So
with
let's
and
clear
also
this
given
up.
pom-poms or 20 mils.
Are you saying it's what Knight asking is these World War II refitted version was built in World War One with said equipment built. Like they're not modified into those ships in World War II. They are originally built in World War One as that spec. Is that what you're asking? Because honestly,
Basically, imagine the WAIRs are done in the 1930s to surplus World War One destroyers are done around World War Two. Or World War One.
huh?
Basically, imagine the WAIR conversions done in the 1930s are done around World War One as new builds. Well, all of a sudden, those destroyers just became some of the most powerful destroyers in the world.
Pretty much.
You just gave them the most powerful 4-inch gun
At the time.
anyone.
You gave them
Like-
advanced anti-submarine technology.
Technology, yeah. You gave them sonar, you gave them radar, you gave them the Mark 14, Mark 4, which has an amazing rate of fire and really good capabilities. You gave them the fully upgraded pom-poms. You gave them Orlikans, the 20mm Orlikans, which is gonna be fun. Sorry, Mark 19 and Mark 16s.
And just generally, you gave them relatively, as well, quote unquote, advanced anti-aircraft capability. It will probably not have too much trouble shooting down biplanes. Cool.
Yeah, this thing will just
Nice.
go biplanes be gone.
To be fair, I don't think you needed to type out every single classes. You could just went VW and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Because most people,
We
if you
will
say V and W
understand
class,
it.
most people will assume you mean both the Admiralties and the Thornycrofts.
just fundamentally speaking, the question you're asking isn't difficult to answer. It's just the way you've written it is so vague and not specific to the point where I think we all on the panel have very different ideas of interpreting how to interpret your question.
Also, the fact that you're saying that Fleet didn't ask what year, you didn't include what year.
These are parameters that, should go into the questions. Thing is, all you said is refit World War I destroyers to World War II escort roles. Okay, that's kind of what they did.
Poor girl, bless her, she was having a panic attack.
The only thing else I can think of is, yeah, you've now lost your torpedo tubes on these destroyers, but
they won't be good fleet destroyers. That, they want them to be.
Yeah, these
and
are
also,
now basically
what do you put on an anti-aircraft destroyer in World War One?
To be fair, these if you got these anti-aircraft destroyers fleet, they would be the most powerful anti-destroyer ships in the world.
Well, not just that. Screw Zeppelins.
Every time I got these,
I'm fairly sure 4-inch gun would do havoc.
Yeah, well,
Zeppelin.
But then again, I'm just trying to, because unless they're not getting these basically like that, and they're just being built, then you're having to get rid of the. They're not getting the radar. They're not getting the same sonar. They're not getting the same guns. They're probably not even getting them in twin turrets. So I don't even know how we're doing this. So
I don't know.
Yeah, like for what the W anti-aircraft destroyers were, can't exist in World War One, effectively.
Mm-hmm. Right. So. Next question. Admiral Wellesley, you are now Flag Officer Seymour. 1 week before the Battle of Jutland. What should you do? I resign!
Why?
Why? Why? Because then he'll have to get someone who actually knows how to do their bloody job.
Just simply don't sortie.
You think you can just go, yes, I resign?
Mm-hmm.
No! No, not that easy. Especially if BT's been dragging you here.
You can't stop me leaving.
He actually can.
Yes, you can.
Well, in that case, then I'm basically just going to have to watch as the... Because I don't know what I'm doing.
My God, Fleet, you were literally the flag officer in one of the most important battles of British history. With your mind... Now, I know...
I don't know flag signals, Dragon!
You tell BT.
You
this
have
is where...
a book.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
open
actually have a
the
book telling
book.
this. And also,
Read.
I don't have time to learn in a
rely
week.
on your chief officers.
You do.
Also, you're forgetting
Foxo,
something.
I would have to spend every hour and every day learning, and I can't be bothered to do that.
Fleet,
No,
this is why you-
no. I'm sorry. All you do is you get a booklet printed that has all the common
Right.
flags.
Wellesley's also now saying, assume you actually have the knowledge as well because you've inhabited their body.
Oh, in that case, then I just do the job properly.
What is
Fleet.
do the job properly?
Fleet! You literally have future knowledge. You realise how much you could change this?
Yeah, Dragon.
You should accidentally slip sleeping pill in Edie's drink before the battle.
Flag Officer Seymour. Yeah, sure. Going to tell anyone above him about his ideas for what's going to happen. Yeah,
no, you do it when you're going out to the battle.
That's not
and when
going
you
to
actually
work.
go, you could literally do the whole thing of trying to go, right, let's signal 5th Battle Squadron to make sure they're with us to begin with.
And everyone's going to wonder why that signal has been made without BT's approval.
There's so many ways you could do this just to make sure they
There
get
aren't.
the message on time.
Fleet, you're a signals officer. You can literally go, there was something wrong with that last signal. We'll signal them again to make sure we know what's going on with them.
Mm-hmm.
There is so many ways you actually can change things here. Because yes, you might be a signals officer, but you're also BT's basically second in command.
Not really. I'm a flag officer. I'm not.
PT isn't paying any attention to the signals.
He kind of. Well,
Let's
Yeah,
go with this.
right,
You
right,
have
right.
a
Fleet,
week
Fleet.
to put Beatty into the hospital.
It's not that fleet. Right. You are aware, on most Royal Navy ships, the signals officer functionally has, especially at this point, autonomy in doing his job. And most signals aren't orders directly from the captain or admiral, right?
mm-hmm.
Which means you get a signal that, or you get the inkling somewhat wrong, you can signal for that ship unless you're explicitly ordered to be silent. So all it would take is for you to think there's something wrong with that with 6 Battle Squadron, radio them to see if they're still with you, and go, oh shit, they're not with us, and tell beating. And that would be under purview of your job.
And considering last time you sent a badly worded signal, he lost a chance because of the battle cruiser raised. If you actually start giving him proper signals, things could go quite well.
Or even, you could play it off as you're learning how to do your job, and you made a mistake, so you re-signaled, and oh hey.
Yeah.
So paradoxically, play it off as you're doing your job.
It's possible. Bone Mill Boy asks on YouTube, what are the panel's thoughts on the book Empire of the Deep?
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it. I will just have a nosy though so I can give basic thoughts.
I've
Empire
not
of the
gone
Deep.
around to reading it.
Is this the one, Rise and Fall of the British Navy? Never read it, sadly. That was quick. Right. Next question.
Do you have any glowstone, Dragon?
Probably.
Diplomat Gunnery Officer asks, thoughts on the Alpha Jet. Do you think it's the best trainer and light attack aircraft in NATO, better than the Hawk S-211 or the T-38? How does the Alpha Jet compare to the L-39? Politely, they're all basically horses for courses. They're all variations on the single jet trainer light attack aircraft.
No, they're not.
The Hawk... Oh boy. Why are they not?
Have you actually looked at the Hawk? Like, genuine question, have you actually looked at it?
Yes. It's marginally more capable than some of the others.
Air superiority variants.
Oh, if you mean strapping a pair of sidewinders to a Hawk and calling it an air defense
and
fighter.
a cannon and potentially up to 4 missiles, on average, the Hawk is actually very good.
Dragon, it's still the same thing you can do with a lot of the other assets as well. The only difference is the Hawk has. I believe...
No, you can't.
No, most trainers you can't. The Alpha's the only one that's even come close lately that remotely can. And even then, it doesn't have quite as good of systems in a lot of situations.
No, the 211 can be weaponed up. As can the... Well, the T-38 is literally... The T-38 is literally...
F5.
Yeah, the T-38 is
a
just...
Seater F5.
Yeah, well... Yeah, the T-38... Well, yeah, it's an F5. There's nothing wrong with an F5. That's the one that's probably least in contention because, well, it has no recourse for armament. But the Hawk, out of all of them, the Hawk is marginally better. It has more capability to be armed up. but at the same time, it's in this whole bracket of light attack / trainer aircraft that developed in the late 80s to 2000s. Useful airframes, to be sure.
They are trainers.
Yeah, I wouldn't like to take a Hawk into
Guys,
combat.
it is in the big scheme of
I
things.
actually would be more than happy to take a Hawk into combat,
Not
depending on
against
where
the...
you're fighting.
You're
You
not-
are perfectly fine with taking a Hawk into combat. Don't complain if, someone shoots an R-73 at you. And
That's
you
why
have
you.
no
that's
way of
why you're-
knowing.
To be fair, if you have someone shoots an R-73, most planes are not going to have a good day.
If you're in a certain...
That's what I'm
If
saying.
you're
In
in
the
a...
big scheme of things, it really doesn't matter which plane you take out of this giant pile.
Yeah.
If someone intends on shooting you down, they are going to be in a much better situation to do so than if you are in a actual proper aircraft or proper fighter. Additional airframe, I understand. But dropping bombs does not require you to have a very specific, or, a ridiculous amount of performance.
Yeah.
All the aircraft listed down below can drop bombs about as efficiently as each other can.
Actually, I'm not necessarily. Overall, I actually would say the Hawk does do a better job than the Alpha Jet in that regard, because it does have more advanced systems on average. So it can drop bombs better than the Alpha Jet can. 'Cause remember, the Hawk has had a lot of upgrades and variants over its life.
Again, a lot of the ones that are currently in service have bombing computers.
Well, yeah.
Whereas
which-
there's not that many variants of the Alpha Jet for this role. Like, the Alpha Jet is very much more, this is a trainer, than this is something we can put into combat. The Hawk is, no, this is, to quote-unquote, a trainer, but we have enough variants that, no, this is a dedicated light fighter / multi-role.
No,
Take the
it's a
Hawk
light
to-
attack aircraft. It's not a light fighter.
Someone should
Why
tell
do
that
you
to
say-
Zimbabwe.
Wait, why do you say that, then?
Yep, both Alpha Jet and Hawk has a bombing computer.
But
Because
Fleet, why,
the
but Fleet,
reason-
why do you say
The reason I
the
say
Hawk
that
cannot be a light fighter?
because of the work that BAE Systems had to do to turn it into a light fighter for the British. If you modify a Hawk for that role, not only does it require, well, first of all, you have to do it with the gun pod and the gun pod to make it into the light fighter to begin with, but it has no it needs ground control assets. It's
Such as?
ground controllers, ground radar systems. You need a full
Why?
integrated air defense system. It doesn't.
Why?
Because it
No,
doesn't.
why does it need that, Fleet?
Fleet. It's
Every
a
aircraft
light
needs
fighter
that.
does. Yeah,
No, what I mean
Like,
is,
it's, no, 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 I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
You can't send
You
a
try
pair
flying
of...
an F-22 over contested airspace without command and control?
No, what I mean is
Mm.
that they can't independently find enemy aircraft. They
Yes,
don't have
they
the
can.
sensor suite for it.
Yes, they can and do.
No, they
Use your
can't and
eyes.
don't.
use your eyes.
Yeah, yes.
It's a light fighter.
Fleet.
That's what it is.
Fleet,
That's...
they
If you are resorted to using Hawks as air superiority fighters, yes, that is the situation you're in.
Right. I would like to point out the current radar in the Hawk is the same found in F-16s.
Which version? Probably the one that the Indians use.
Which
Wait,
what
did
does it
I
mean?
just hear
That is still a radar.
Both British,
Yeah, it's
in
still a radar.
British, Indonesian, Malaysian, and Omani ones so far, with plans to be put in a good number of others.
Look, it's fundamentally you could strap missiles to a bus. It doesn't make it a light fighter. It's
Actually, it does.
cosplaying. It's
It does.
cosplaying as being an air-to-air asset when fundamentally it will probably lose every engagement
When you can load
finds
it up
itself
with
in.
4 to 5 of the latest missiles?
No, you can't. You can carry 2.
No, it can carry. It has 4 dedicated underwing pylons with a potential 5th underwing pylon to be able to carry it as well.
I mean, it doesn't really matter.
Fleet,
Just having
which
two
hawk
meteors
are
is
you
already,
looking
you know.
at?
All of them. You have 2 munitions. Well, okay.
No. No,
No,
look at the Hawk 200. Also, the same upgrades on the Hawk 200 have been retrofitted to a number of earlier ones. Like,
Well, Hawk 200 is. Okay, Hawk 200 is a. I would argue at that point you're no longer a trainer. It has become a light multi-role fighter.
thank you for saying literally what we've been telling you.
Yes, but you were arguing that the Hawk as a platform entirely could do that. Hawk 200.
No, actually, I was
Hawk-
saying particular variants.
Yes, you didn't specify though.
Yeah, but Hawks
I
that are used
explicitly
as
did.
trainers
Oh,
are
boy.
exclusively trainers can do that.
No, the
Most trainers could do that,
the
actually.
non-200 variants are bomb trucks at the best of times. Shall we move on?
Yeah, because apparently you don't quite seem to understand how planes work, but yep, move on. And hello, Runon. Actually, C-Dot, is it really kind of when we're just talking about Hawks in general, and if you really want to say that, then you could disqualify the F5. So,
And no
but
one's
that
gonna
was
claim the
also
F5s
included.
are a light fighter.
I mean, it doesn't really matter. The entire point about trainers is the fact that they can, in a pinch, be emergently converted into, either
Light
bomb
attack
fighter or
aircraft.
superiority fighter. Yeah, it's spare airframes that if really you need to, you can press into service. You are not gonna have a happy day, but hey, it's a plane.
Yeah.
No,
I
in
would-
particular, right, C-Dotters, it mentions the T-38, which is practically the F5. Right.
Yeah, the
Next question, Fleet. Just
Talon's just a twin-seater F5.
it is, but it has
It's not really a different airframe. Northrop. It's
the problem is
basically
it
the
has
same
no
damn thing.
it has no recourse for armament. That's the problem with it. It physically can't be armed up. Either way. Lions asks, from the panel who are familiar with the virtual line crosser, which of his characters would you like to meet in a chat?
most of us already answered this and said we have no clue who this is.
I'd like to meet the UK or possibly Russia to smack Russia in the face. The buff is pretty funny,
The
and of
buff.
course
The answer, there's one legal answer, and that is the buff.
The buff.
The buff.
One personal opinion, I don't like the buff.
Right.
Just let it die already.
No, buff must continue. Another 25 years to
Why?
go.
It's a perfectly fine plane that could carry a lot of shit.
Yes, it is. The buff
It's
is
not though.
Yeah, the buff is to the buff
it
is to
is.
the US what the H6 is to China. It is a cheap to fly and operate truck to carry missiles to an area, or in the
Yeah,
US's
but
case,
I'm sorry,
ordnance
but
to an area.
But the point where you're having to spend several times the cost of building a new aircraft to recondition airframes, let it die.
The problem is they can't until the B21 comes on stream in massive numbers, and if it doesn't, they have to keep going.
But it will.
Well, no, the B-21 would not replace the B-52 either. The B-52 has always been a supplementary part of the fleet. They're keeping them
Yeah.
alive simply because the airframe already exists. They don't have to build new ones.
Hmm.
Yeah, but at this point, they need to replace the fucking airframe.
On
Because
some
there's
of them.
only so much you can recondition aluminium and steel.
There
Well-
is. It's true, but they have another 25 years left on the clock, which is all they need to do.
Theoretically, under light load. But there is
Yeah,
a point at
unfortunately,
which
I
you have
tend to
to
agree
go.
with Benno because you say 25 years, but no, it's probably actually going to be stretched out to about 50. And
Well,
in general,
yeah,
no, I do actually think
Let it
they
die.
do.
Well, no,
They
well,
do
no, it was.
kind of need to be let die at this
Well,
point.
no, it was.
Well,
Well, no, it was
uh,
50.
while
It
you've
was
got them,
50.
might as well
It was
use them.
50 25 years ago. It was 50 25 years
Yes.
ago.
No, it was 25 years ago, and they've added 25.
Right, Ruben?
the problem is that American industry cannot replace the B-52 right now.
Exactly.
It flat out can't. Yeah, okay, fine. We've got one native company that makes airliners, so we've only got one company that can produce something that matches or approaches the physical dimensions of that level of bomber. To my knowledge, Raider is not designed for the strategic bombing role like the B-50 in the same manner that the B-52 was. The B-52 is designed to carpet an area. The Raider is designed to viciously palpate an area. How would we put it that way?
Well, no, to be fair, the B-52 role nowadays is not even carpet bombing. Strategic bombing is not remotely a part of its role. It is now just there to have airframes to fling a shit ton of
So,
anti-ship
technically speaking,
missiles.
Yuki, you're not even right on that one. It's unfortunately even worse. The B-52 is not a 50s design.
It's a
It's
40s
a
design.
40s design.
I love B-52. It will
The
go on forever.
official thing for it came out 1945, November 23. The actual design that becomes B-52 was agreed upon on the 5th of June 1946. Pain and suffering.
I see nothing wrong with it. This is just the same way of people yelling, "We need to replace the fucking Modus." It works.
I agree.
Leave me alone.
Keep them going. I know. Right. First flight was 52.
No.
Yes.
I gotta say this. The Mardus in US service is a ship of fucking Theseus.
Right.
Because those
So-
machine guns have very little in common with the original ones.
To be frank, the same can be said for the current iteration of 52.
Honestly,
in
the
my
opinion-
best solution
No,
to
but
square
it's
the
more the fact
circle.
that they're the same airframes.
The best solution to
The
square
better-
the circle is honestly to do what the Chinese have done. You have a new mark of B-54 or whatever you want to call it, and it's totally the same bombers, guys. Honest, Gov, definitely, it's definitely the same airframes. Honestly,
It's
just
called
Well,
B-52J.
The U.S.
If
Yeah.
they
The U.S.
build
Air
new
Force,
ones.
the U.S. Air Force has already been doing that by way of great refit.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have
Uh,
been.
But
It's more people are figuring out that
hang on.
it's end of life.
Let
not fucking
Ruben
airframes.
finish. Let Ruben finish.
The one thing I would point out against the Maw Deuce comparison is that I can fit a Maw Deuce fully disassembled on my desk, and it probably has a part count of under 100. And that's including all the things like circlips and spring retainers and cotter pins. A B-52 does not quite compare as far as service life to an M2 Browning.
Yeah.
Right. So just quickly looking at this. Yeah, the last B-52 that was produced in 1962.
Yeah.
There's not been a single one built since then. And even in terms of rebuilds, they're not really proper rebuilds. In my opinion, the B-52 has reason to keep flying currently. But God, you seriously need to be starting to look at what comes next.
Politely,
Don't worry,
it will literally just be
Like-
B-52 again, because fundamentally that's what
No,
the
no,
Air
but
Force
then-
needs.
Even if that's
No,
the
no,
case,
no,
though,
no, 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 no,
fine.
no. Okay, controversial opinion. The US needs to get off its ass and get the Rapid Dragon system working. Because you can replace the role the B-52s do nowadays with a C-130.
No, you can't.
No,
Yeah, you can.
you cannot.
No, you cannot.
Both about just as vulnerable. The C-130 carries a heavier load.
Not as far and not
Both
as
can
fast.
shoot cruise missiles at things. Both about just as vulnerable if pretty much any air defense or interceptor decides mine.
The C-130
And-
isn't. The C-130 can't fly as far or as fast, doesn't have the same networking
Or as high.
capabilities
Both
as
are
52.
incredibly
High.
fucking slow aircraft.
Well, that's not the requirement, though.
Also, this
Yeah,
I've,
but no, it's what
Foxo,
Fleet
Foxo,
said about calling it
Foxo.
slow.
I'm jumping up here
Foxo.
to immediately shut that down because the 52 is deceptively fast. Deceptively so.
But is it?
It is a
fast enough
fast
for that?
fucking aircraft, and it has incredibly longevity in its fuel consumption.
maximum speed.
It's why they could fly from the east coast of the USA during, I believe it was
Desert Storm.
Enduring Freedom, or Desert Storm, sorry, and bomb the shit out of Iraqis and still fly home without issue.
Right. So we actually looked into that one recently. That was an incredibly unique thing and not done that often.
No,
That had
but
a lot
but
of.
it's the sort of
that had a
thing
whole
that they
bunch- and it did
could
have a
do.
whole bunch of refuelers.
yes, the same way that we did with the Vulcans of the Falklands.
Yes, it was basically it was.
But
to
that
prove
is
a point
something that is a
was
uniquely,
purely to prove a point until they then moved
strategic
B-52s
uniquity that the
closer.
B-52 currently fulfills that no other aircraft can.
My biggest issue is with A, I'm getting sick of the memes of it, and B, I accept that it works fine as a plane currently. It's
Like,
just a case of
basically,
these are the only models they've got are from the 60s and earlier.
yeah.
There is a material limit where this is starting to become a problem mechanically.
The US needs to
Given-
basically pull a China, because the Chinese are continuing to crank out new versions of the H6 that are basically, yes, new airframe with better
But
electronics.
that's part of the issue
Given-
everyone was saying.
They
the US
can't do that.
They don't have that ability anymore.
I
Unless you want
know.
to trust Boeing.
No, what I mean is,
Given-
they need to come up with something.
Let Renault speak.
If the United States Air Force had the funding and was, to my mind, smart, what they would do is they would set up their own private aircraft company and build a B-52 clone. That's not likely to happen under any administration. But the problem is, Boeing's C-suite is so, excuse me, fucked in the head right now for various reasons, good, bad, or indifferent. I wouldn't trust them with the contract. But unfortunately, unless you want to get, maybe Lockheed could do it, or excuse me, Grumman could do it. Northrop Grumman could do it, because they're the only ones I know that's an American company that produces any sort of medium or larger sized airframe. But otherwise, you have to get, realistically, Airbus or Bombardier it. And to be
Bombardier.
frank, as much as close
Right.
enough, they're French. I don't care. It's you're never going to get Congress to sign off on setting up a publicly owned corporation.
Bombardier aren't
let
French, they're
alone-
Canadian.
well, close enough.
That's not the issue.
They're the biggest problem is they're a foreign company. They're a foreign-owned company. You're much less you're going to get what's going to get Congress to cut a check for what is definitely going to be a multi-trillion-dollar program to replace, even if it's only a B-52 to B-53 airframes. So you're stuck with 52 until you run out of letters in the alphabet, or we manage to somehow set up some sort of ideally wide-body capable production line that isn't Boeing.
The thing is, there is actually there is a you could go to Lockheed.
Lockheed
C-17.
are pretty much at capacity doing other things.
Yes, they are, but if you throw enough money at them, they have the potential. They could use
This
C-17.
is just all coming down to the fact that money, and the
Yes.
Air Force is too busy funding the sixth generation, development.
And Congress didn't want to spend money under Biden. They definitely don't want to spend money under Trump.
Mm-hmm. But we don't
And
want to get.
obviously,
but-
we're also
but
talking
we
about
are-
Trump, so
but we
which
have-
basically,
we
if
have
you're not American,
tangented-
we're not asking you to build
Yeah.
things.
But we have tangented
Yeah.
in rather a dramatic fashion.
Have we?
to-
Wait, have you
yes.
seen the title that you have given this recurring podcast stream of yours?
Yeah.
We ramble randomly.
we do.
And
This
it's
is
usually tangentially connected.
It is.
Yes,
it's
it
not,
is.
This one isn't even tangentially.
This one's directly.
Exactly.
right. Okay, so
Wake up,
Run
frog,
on, don't
next-
die, it's bad for your health.
next question is, what would it take to turn HMS Hood into a fully armored battlecruiser? She arguably already is one.
No, I mean, I think
Vanguard
what,
style.
or like hell,
Subdivision.
at least Tiger style.
She'd
Well,
need a war. She'd need a war spite refit.
The problem.
No,
No,
should
the,
need
the
No,
problem.
no, no,
No,
no,
the
no.
problem. The
Okay,
problem
okay.
you've got is that remember the reason that the full designation fully armored battlecruiser exists is it's because it's a ship that's very well protected, almost akin to a battleship, but has the framing and
No,
internals
it's
of a
not.
battlecruiser.
No, it's not.
No,
Also,
Also,
it's
it's
not.
not
It's
the
the other way
hull
around.
designation. No, the hull
It's the
destination.
other way
either.
around. It's a battle cruiser with the framing, the ribs, and the subdivisions of a battleship.
No, that makes no sense, Foxo. It's my
Why
way
would that
round.
be-
What?
No.
A
It's
battle
perfect.
cruiser with superior levels of internal subdivision.
We might need Dr.
Would-
Cardboard this
That
one.
would be a reinforce. No, that would just be a. That wouldn't be a battle
But it's
cruiser. That would be a battleship. The whole point
No.
of calling
No.
it a
Fully
fully
armored
armored battle
battle
cruiser.
cruiser.
Fleet,
It's synonymous with battle cruiser, one word.
Yeah, fleet. You have remember your scale. You've got large. You've got super cruiser.
I am aware of the
Battle-
scale.
Are you though? Battle cruiser, fully armored battle cruiser, fast battleship.
Yes, I'm aware, but it goes armored cruiser, battle cruiser 2 words, battle cruiser 1 word, fast battleship. That's the scale. That's Dr. Clark's scale. And a fully armored battle cruiser on that scale is a ship that is a battle cruiser 1 word, but is even more heavily protected than something like Tiger, which in this particular case fits Hood basically perfectly. She is armored against her own guns. She is a fully armored battle cruiser.
But she doesn't have the subdivision.
Yeah,
That
that's
Tiger
my
has.
thing.
Yeah,
She is a step
Because-
below Tiger in the
Yeah. because
Category
you got to remember
sense.
when it comes to protection, it's not just the armor belt; it's the bracketing of the arm. It's the bracing of the armor belt. It's the belt behind it that takes the shock.
And because Hood was designed for the commerce raiding and flag waving missions, it had lesser
Battlecruiser 2
subdivision.
words.
It had lesser subdivision in order to increase crew comfort, essentially.
Right, Flea. Are you aware of the key designers, right?
Yes.
Oh, here we go again.
Here we go.
And their designs that come directly after Hood, that are fundamentally stuff like K1, K2, are designs of we want an Admiral class in function. But Jutland has shown us that the Admiral class and the battle cruiser style construction doesn't work. And so
Or
the difference
ships.
So the differences between the revised Admiral design that Hood is and the K2 design is most of them have the same armor belt and armor layout. But they add 3,000 tons of displacement purely to the bracing and the backing of the armor belts and the subdivision.
Mm-hmm.
Those designs would go on to influence post-treaty and post-treaty battlecruiser concepts, which would then have a degree of effect on Vanguard and the concept of the fully armored battlecruiser.
Mm-hmm.
How much of an effect is debatable. You with me?
So far, I think. Keep going.
But a lot of those are referred to as fully armored or fully protected battlecruisers. Because they have the 12-inch belt, but they're protected from torpedoes, they're protected from shock, they're protected from after effects, like a battleship.
This is all hurting my head.
Welcome to battle cruisers.
Yeah.
So essentially, imagine it as like, okay,
Stop the ride, I want to
drink
get
more
off.
Iron Brew.
like, have you ever worn armor?
No.
So if you
No.
don't
Well,
know,
in Japan,
anyone who has plate armor knows that armor isn't just a metal sheet that covers your body. There is layers of padding beneath it, right?
Gambeson.
The Gambeson, but
Gamson split with a few others.
Gambeson split, padding, something just called padding. Sometimes even paper and paper mache. Looking at you, Japan, but actually really good, really effective armor. And essentially, you can think of the difference as a battle cruiser. You're not even in full plate armor. A battle cruiser, one word, you're in full plate armor with minimal padding beneath you.
Right, I
Right?
get it. I understand.
A
I think-
fully armored battle cruiser, you're in the full shebang. You've got about 2 inches of padding, you've got proper cushioning, you've got stuff like, I can't remember what it's called, but it's what the Germans did, where it's a flexible layer of fabric that distributes force in the armor plate itself and not into your body. That's the difference. But for all three ships, the armor, for all three sets of armor, the armor plate thickness is pretty much the same. You get me?
I get you.
Anyway, do we want to the next question?
Probably shouldn't I, for my brain
She will
melts.
keep going.
1971, would
You have fetal autism.
the Argent... gone. Let me have a look. 1981 asks, will the Argentina be better or worse off instead of the two Type 42 Sheffield class destroyers? Well, calling them the Sheffield class is a bit disingenuous. They're more just the Type 42s. Sheffield's just one of the ships. The Argentinian Navy got 2 more Miko 360H2 Almirante Brown class destroyers. Well, I mean, basically saying, do they have the planned build out of 6? But the thing is, if they don't get the Type 42s, that means they don't have any modern destroyers for the Falklands. Because the...
What are they getting instead?
Well, it's the Almirante Browns. It's the Miko 360s they bought from Blom and Voss. But here's the thing: they won't get them until after the war ends. The first doesn't arrive until January '83.
I suppose the question is what happens if I order them earlier, maybe?
I mean, if they order them earlier, they are much better ships, if you want my honest opinion. For point defense. They can do 15-kilometer point defense with their Aspide missiles, and they've got a slightly better reaction time. They have 8 missiles on the rails with 24 more available for reload, and they do have a 5-inch gun and 4 twin 40 mils, and they're those nice 40 mils, the ones that partially CWIS. They can function in that role, so they're pretty well protected in terms of air threats and missile threats, and they've got there's no way they can carry 40 exocets. There's no way. They have 2 quads. It's the MN40 variant. Never mind. Whoops. Sorry. So no, they have 8 exocets, which is more than the Type 40. So they are arguably better ships in all respects, apart from lacking Sea Dart for intermediate air defense. They'd probably be better off because they'd have 6 destroyers. They'd have a uniform class of 6 ships. So I would argue, yes, they would be better off.
Now, is this Sheffield just as shiny as the previous one?
Ay. Kill me now. Kaiser's been putting more of his artwork in.
Serious question. No,
Nice.
Fleet. That's gonna be Fleet. I can't kill Fleet. I can't kill Fleet. I can't kill you now. Leslie and Drac already have a claim to your keystone.
Knight's saying 8 Mako 360 H2's not 6, and 2 Argentine Type 42s become Mako 360. But Knight, they only got 4. They didn't get 6. They planned 6, but they didn't get them. So it's 6. Because if you turn the 2 Type 42s into Mako, that brings them up to 6. Because your question didn't specify they got all 6.
This has been a noticeable trend this week.
You need to, if that's what you want, you need to specify that. But if they've got 8, then yeah. If they've got 8, then yeah. Yes, the plan was 6, but they didn't get 6, Knight. They got 4. So if you add 2 to that, you get 6. They cancelled the other 2.
In typical Royal Navy fashion.
So if I give them 2 more, that gives them
British
6.
government fashion.
Yeah, they planned. Knight, how was I supposed to know you intended that all 6 ships would be completed when there was no indication that that's what you wanted? And
Fleet, just we've already been over this.
Yeah.
We've almost this exact same thing. We've been over.
His last question was exactly like that.
Because I'm a mod on both channels, I'm gonna say this, Knight. The question will be answered as asked. And please don't go fishing for the answer you want by changing the question around.
So, next.
Okay, so that was. I was looking for the next one, which is actually. Oh, it's from Kaiser. Warship people. My question for Fleet and his rambling ramblers is: how realistic are my ship drawings? I've shown a variety, and Fleet will probably murder me, but I need this. Murder you?
I actually think they're pretty reasonable.
Murder you? I want to commission you. I want to slap you on the back and say, "Job well done, old son."
Fleet likes the host, so he has no grounds to judge other warships by aesthetics.
Are you kidding me? These things are fucking fantastic.
To be fair, Runon, these ones are pretty reasonable.
Considering they're hand-drawn with a bloody pencil.
There's definitely something I'm slightly questioning, like on the Dominion of Borolon.
I'm just saying that as a way to demonstrate that Fleet is a very lenient, generous, and kind individual. So I'm sure you'll have to work if you want to actually piss him off with ship designs.
No, you don't have to try very hard.
Reasonable.
Fleet, you like the host.
A little weird, in my opinion.
It's very Japanese.
American. Well, because you've got.
It's well, no, I know what these
very
are.
Much the refit of the fast replacements to the Congos.
Gentlemen, I think if we have a look, they're very much Russians.
Damn.
They're very much Russian alike. If you look, they're blending Russian and then German design and construction techniques.
Well, yeah, I was going to say the front of the ship looks Russian.
No, I mean if you look at the whole series of ships, starting from the pre-dreadnought in 1890 through to the last design in 1960, you can see the design lineage and development. It's very Russian.
Yes, but the Dominion of Borolon isn't that Russian in a lot of regards.
I'd argue.
Just hop in quickly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, ABC, it wasn't silk they used under the armor, the Germans. In the 15th century, they were using tension temp cloth that was very finely woven.
Yeah, like the the second image, very Russian, definitely. Like that is, I'm pretty sure I've actually seen Russian designs that look practically identical to that. One after it, I guess I don't really entirely know if it's that Russian. To me, it looks almost German, with some of the ideas to refit certain ships.
But But overall, in terms of drawing skill, absolutely phenomenal. Keep it up.
Yeah, definitely quite reasonable.
Yeah.
And you've
Well
not done the more stupid thing of like make something that's completely unreasonable. This is
Honestly,
all
the progression
pretty
makes
reasonable.
logical sense. You can see the various, you know, eras of the
only
battleships.
thing I would say is a little strange. Well, there's two bits I'd say is a little bit strange. One, and they come from the same thing. One, the 16.5-inch guns are 61 caliber.
Yeah, maybe they
That is
prioritize velocity over barrel droop or
No,
barrel
it is
life.
1965.
Yeah, but a 61
Communication
caliber.
officers.
Mm.
There is a certain highly credentialed individual that is waiting on somebody to elevate them to the. It's
Shut
the-
up
Are they
again.
waiting or are they lurking?
No, they're waiting.
No, they sent me a boop token.
Right.
I
so
got
is,
one as well.
Hood, and
What?
I
To
would
be fair-
not like to get
Yes, to be fair, I send a boop token to Fleet first.
I was busy. We were looking at pretty,
I was
pretty
driving.
warships.
In particular, on average, yes, I get the idea that this is like 60s, but it's more a case of 61 caliber is a very, very long gun for considering how big this is.
Well,
We're
the
close to
I'm
a
on
wide
61
building.
times 61 by 16 and a half, and then divide by 12.
Give me a sec. Oh, I'm literally calculating that out
I'm-
now.
Just generally
so-
more questioning why you're
so,
building a battleship in
uh,
1965.
If-
2,129.9.
In an era or a world, because these are clearly not from Earth or they're from an alternate version of Earth, in a world where the clear dominance of the carrier hasn't been determined and the missile hasn't developed that quickly, you are looking at that basically being the last gasp of the big gun service combatant in that kind of world. 1960 is about when you would expect the last such ships in a world like that to have their keels laid.
I'm just not sure you
Well,
necessarily
yes,
see
and you're
61
talking about them having having barrels which are 83, nearly 84 foot long.
Those are going to be heavy barrels.
And you're saying it's got 4 triples?
4
Yeah.
triples, yes.
Well, I'm not saying it.
So yeah, that's gonna be.
That's gonna be some hella. That's gonna be
It's gonna
some
be a very
dummy
big
thick
ship.
trunnions.
Because remember, Fleet, barrels of this length didn't really come about for a reason.
Oh
They
no,
are heavy,
I'm aware.
and they are unwieldy.
But what I would point
I'm not-
out is it's probably it wouldn't surprise me if this is the last
Actually, I've just noticed
gasp.
one of 30.
It wouldn't surprise me if this is the last gasp of the battleship gang trying to keep their beloved warships actually relevant. And
I don't see them
trying
going
to
for
squeeze-
longer gun caliber
nicest
range,
way.
though.
But what I would say is, like, just because they design
You
it a certain way.
Can I just say
Can I
something?
finish my
Iowa's
point first?
Well, yes.
Like,
Not quite. The Iowa's
Um,
barrel is 67 foot long, right? Talking about something with nearly 84, well, 83.875, so pretty much 84 foot
84 feet.
long barrel. So that's an extra 25%
Mm.
added onto that barrel length.
Yeah.
That's
It wouldn't surprise
no,
me if
that-
these.
that-
It
that's-
wouldn't surprise me if
that's-
these ships are built as the final gasp of the battleship, but basically turn out to be
Right.
massive white elephants.
No, right. Fleet, why do you keep saying that?
Why do I keep
'Cause
saying that?
I'll be honest, it's starting to annoy me. Why do you think this is the last gasp? Because they've got
Because-
long caliber guns.
No, not because of the long caliber guns. I think the long caliber guns are distinctive.
So
of
far,
the-
every time though we've stated something about the caliber guns, you said, "Oh, it's because it's the last gasp of the battleship."
No, it's because they're trying to probably make up for the range disadvantage they have against things like missiles and aircraft by increasing the range
What
of their
range
guns.
disadvantage?
They probably are carrying missiles themselves.
Not according to this, but in general, I don't. You're not going to get that much more range probably from this.
Have you listened to... I'll make myself clear again
Also,
for the
as-
second time. As I said, they are trying to achieve something. I don't think they're going to. I think it's a silly idea. I think they're going to fail. But I can kind of understand the design decisions that have led them to that conclusion.
I can't because we don't
judging
have
by
any
the
idea
date.
what's going on in the world. Also, on top of that, even if we go off historical precedent where they were still trying to compete like this is not how you see it go. Now, as I was saying to my other issues, the fact it has 24 6-inch guns of 55 caliber. So that means you've got 4 triple turrets on either side in the quad sight range. I'm assuming these are probably some sort of weird anti-air 6-inch. It's just a bit... I like 6-inch, but the fact they're also triples is a little weird considering the arrangement.
Oh, triple
3 times
auto loader work.
We saw what happened with triple auto loaders. Not fun times. Not fun times for 6-inch, I should say. Works okay for 8-inch, not so fun for 6-inch. Then the final issue I've noticed is this ship has a top speed of 37 knots. And I'm not entirely sure for its length and beam it necessarily would do so.
I mean, I will point out that this is a design that that I see actually on the board, but I don't see actually constructed. So I am beginning to wonder if it's something that was drawn up but never actually built because everyone looked at it and went,
Fleet, you're grasping at straws that physically don't exist. We don't know, so we can't make these statements at all.
But I would also point out the fact that
one thing I'm going to point out is that for the lowest cost option to put warheads on foreheads, you cannot beat a dumbfire projectile.
and I would also point out the fact
how
that
realistic are the ship designs?
he didn't
In
ask
particular, I think the
that.
unrealistic bit is the size of the caliber in terms of some of the guns, and probably the quad stacked triple super firing 6-inch is a bit weird.
Yeah, if they were 6-inch 55s in large roomy single turrets with auto loaders, that'd be fine. That would actually make sense. But yeah, that it's a bit weird.
Also, Hood's just pointed out the fact that these apparently have a 10-year build time. Like, the design is 1965. It is planned for build in 1975.
Oh, that design's never survived
Damn.
that long.
Talk about a slow walk.
I like
That's
it.
all
I like it.
That's not a ship construction. That's not a ship construction program at that point. That's a jobs creation program.
But again, we can't really
all
say
due
much
respect,
beyond
but-
the actual designs because, again, we have no information on world or anything. So
that's pretty true. But I
saying
will
we
admit,
can't see
it's
them
a
going off
nice.
the board probably can't happen because they might have.
It's a nice it's a nice outpouring of creative. It's a fairly unique design, actually. Not really drawing inspiration from anything in the real world, which is nice to see. It's not. I don't see German, British, American, or other practice in it. I just see something unique and new, which to me makes it worth it in and of itself.
I'm pretty sure we literally went through at the beginning of this where we see various bits coming from.
No. For the
Yeah, I was there
full
for that.
for the full ship, for the image with all the ships on, yeah. But for the one
No, I'm gonna-
that's Sin Dominion, I don't really see any inspiration.
No, I do.
I don't.
I literally told you. Right, so the full bow profile is Russian.
Kind
It's
of.
based on, that is straight up taken from the Russian battleship designs of the 30s and 40s. The bridge design is incredibly reminiscent of a hybrid between either the American ones, initially designed for the Iowas,
Wow, Dragon
and
Raider
the
shows
fast battleship
creativity.
replacements of the Congos. The turret for the secondary battery arrangement is literally just straight up that you find on King George V's and Lions.
I mean, that's just common sense. That's more convergent evolution than copying.
Fleet, how many other nations used that design for their secondaries?
You mean the 2 up, 2 down?
In this exact configuration.
I mean, it really doesn't matter at this point. I mean,
But Fleet, and
it's
please
a fairly
answer the
original. It's
question.
a fairly original concept, and I won't have it slandered.
What slander? I've already
Wait,
said
you
it.
were just telling it was the last gasp of a dying generation.
No,
and
what I
yes,
said was
yeah.
the creativity was pretty good, and now you're saying it's not creative at all.
What? I never said that. I said there's very clear inspirations.
There are very clear inspirations.
I don't
If
really
you're
see
looking
them.
at that, if you're looking at structure design, and especially on, I would say, the first one, and you're not seeing the German design heritage and German, and to extent some Italian design heritage in that, then I am worried about you.
Yeah, there's a lot of things where the Sin Dominion of Boreon class very certainly has stuff where it's been taken from.
I can see in the other two
But they
ships
are good- they are good
and
designs.
in the
Like, yeah, I think they're very
compendium.
good designs. It's just
But I just, for some reason, in
it's
Sind, I
noticeable to see where
can't see
inspiration's
it.
taken.
If for some reason in Sind I can't see it, possibly because of the blend of various different features, but I just can't see any clear lines of inspiration. I can see it in the other ships. So, for example, the other one with
nice way.
the triples.
That's before Fleet digs himself into something I feel might be a pit he can't get out of. I should say I've just
He
put
was
a
already
request
halfway
in
to the Earth's mantle. You're going to stop him now?
Yeah. Yes. I put something in the Theatre at Sea text chat where I've just saw this on my YouTube video and I feed, and I thought while I was waiting for my headphones to charge, and then I thought, well, you know what? What happens if there's challenges like that in Japan?
Nope.
I can take the shipshape crew to.
Nope. Sorry, that's
there's
not the
plenty
sort
of
of
those.
thing. That's not the sort of thing I really go in for.
Man,
Kaiser did.
that's a
Spike.
state I can't go to. Sad. It looks tasty
Yeah.
too. I
It's the
probably have
famous
to take a
Fat
week
Boy
off
challenge.
work.
Is there a
But-
specific type of food you're looking for? Or just
Preferably
any eating challenge?
something which has a large amount of meat in it, because both me and Drac are carnivores.
That's
But
okay.
any challenges like that, please do send us. And if there's a cake eating challenge or something like that, we'll take it. We'll take it. Any sort of challenges,
I'll sit back and quietly just watch them go.
No, you'll be taking part because
No,
please,
thank you,
have
I
to
don't
remember,
think so.
It's part of the social media content we put out for our
Yes,
our
but
sponsors.
I don't really go in for that whole mass eating sort of thing. I'm sorry, it's just not really my cup of tea.
Well, no, Fleet, you can stop being humble. They know that if you take part, you'll win. There's no need to be humble.
That's not really fair. I mean, I don't really go in for the whole mass eating sort of thing.
Well, we don't normally either, but on these trips, it's kind of a tradition that we do a couple of these things just as stuff for the sponsors to see.
I'll
There's
play it.
videos
I
of-
will.
and it's basically
I
so-
will play
It's
it
basically
by.
so we all have a go.
Uh-oh.
Usually the victors come down to about there's three of us who have quite large bellies and will eat quite a lot.
I will play it
Moses,
by.
already
I will
tried.
play it by
the
ear.
food challenges
Doesn't-
needed to try in Japan.
I will play it by ear as we go. How's
Okay.
that?
There's quite a
Doesn't
few.
drag-
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, there's
Doesn't-
capstone, there's curry, there's steak.
Oh yeah, baby.
Doesn't Drac have a competitive streak about as wide as the Gulf of Mexico?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes, he
but-
does.
But Dan Colden has the ability to consume. Is about. Let's see. He's about 6'8" in height. At full height, he is quite a stocky gentleman, and yeah, he can pack it away. So yeah,
Okay.
and then there's Dan Freeman, who's a doctor, a medical one, and they can eat a lot.
A lots
And
are
okay-
quite tasty.
And occasionally, I also step up. Occasionally, depends what it is. But yeah, the competitive streak does come out, and it's quite interesting to watch it happen. It's also a good way to get everyone to have a lazy morning next morning if I want them to have a late start. Although no one heard that from me, I am not socially engineering my groups that they occasionally have a quiet morning before when they've been working hard.
So does
I've never
that
been
allow
sort of
you to
thing.
get out and get to the museums of the day early so you can do what you want to do without the encumbrance of your partners? Because you
I
don't
would never
sleep?
do that. I
You
would
mutant?
never do that. I get that advantage anyway.
Sure, Dan. And
I
far
still
be it
know
from
that-
Dr. Clark to pad his advantage.
I still remember Dan's face when he was walking down to the gym at 7 a.m. in the morning, and I was coming back from there, and he was just going, "Why have you been in the gym?" I was bored.
Well, I would assume it's because you probably didn't sleep the night before.
No.
Yeah, but that's not notable. Or when I don't sleep on a given night, that's somewhat notable. When Dr. Clark doesn't sleep on at any given night, that's just a day ending in Y.
That's why I'm saying, like, this is probably why you were going out from the gym when he was going into it.
Yeah.
The good doctor is, as I say, a bit of a mutant.
Yeah. Enjoyably so.
Next question, Fleet.
Wait.
We killed Fleet. We finally did it.
It
For
happens very often.
for those who'd like to take over from Fleet in the role as Fleet, please send your requests and your riders and your various CVs to replace Fleet at drydock.co.uk.
Yeah, do not
I
actually
thought- Does it come with a UK working visa?
I don't think so. It's a voluntary position, but we'll see what we can do about giving you a decent supply of
I
chocolate.
thought Foxo would have been the first replacement.
Yeah, like, what? What the hell, man?
Well, no, we need to replace.
Also-
If we're going to replace Fleet, we have to technically do an open thing. But technically, the reality is the Foxo will replace Fleet, and the Cool will actually replace Foxo.
Well, yeah. See, what'll happen is Foxo, when they write the position description, they're going to write it in such a way that you are the only candidate that meets all of the requirements to the extent that they're looking for.
Must
And-
answer to the name Fox.
No, see, it can't be that blatant because then equal opportunity gets involved and it just turns into a giant pissing match.
No.
And nobody
In a
needs
nice way,
that.
must identify as a fox because we are too human-centric on this show.
Now, just a minute. That implies I have any modus operandi for my hiring at all. We all know that's not true.
No?
Fleet, I've seen the budget. You are not putting enough into recruiting and
I
retention.
do not have a budget.
And
Well, what
to
was
be
that meeting
fair-
we had last night?
There was no meeting
To be
last
I
night.
stayed
fair-
up at I stayed up till 3 a.m. my time working through the budget with you last night.
There was
To
no
be
budget
fair,
meeting.
Fleet's budget mostly includes spending stuff on his special outfits for when he likes his furry time. Okay?
Oh, now listen
That's what
here.
most of the budget goes on.
Now listen here. That's not the
Yeah,
case.
that was quite a large line item.
Okay, yeah, I have to say it's a long lead item, and I say nay to him getting it.
Now listen here, you
Oh.
little shit.
Fleet didn't even realise the double hidden meaning on that one.
No, I did. That's why I said listen here, you little shit. Anyway, moving on. Where were we? And also, I really have
I
to,
actually have a lot less.
really have to
today.
get my dog to the vet. That's the second panic attack she's had tonight.
Yeah, that's a little concerning.
Pro tip, Fleet. If it's twice in a night and there's no obvious trigger, that's not a panic attack.
I think she heard
Then,
somebody
as
coming
our
home.
master of pets, Foxo, what would you think it is? Like, being genuine here, like, what would you actually think the cause could be?
Well,
Well,
I
if
used
it's
to have
the symptoms of a panic attack, it's something that's causing a similar effect without obvious symptoms. I would get a breathing checked out
yeah.
Yeah. I have to get
because
that
the
sorted.
body's natural response, even for dogs when you can't breathe, is to panic.
Well, I'm pretty right. Foxo, considering I've literally seen what happens when you couldn't breathe properly. Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Surprisingly, most bodies that do not have the pathways wired for a lack of self-preservation get quite concerned when they stop intaking fresh oxygen.
Knight 6831 asks. on
Seriously, why are you
YouTube-
demanding oxygen? That's just bonus material.
Yeah. Knight 683. No, Mo Boy, it's the Gulf of Mexico. It's not the Gulf of America.
To be fair, I don't think I've
I-
heard anyone use Gulf of America outside comedic naming at this point.
96831 asks if the naval treaty had before 1937 forced.
Okay,
forcing-
that looks good.
I assume it means forced. Forced the disposal of all ships converted to AA, long-range and short-range destroyer escorts. What do the British do? When 1937 comes around, they just build new
Oh,
ships.
there's a Greek
Why
group
are
option for it.
they... Right, why would they force the disposal of all ships converted to AA escort?
And long and short-range destroyer
Who's
escorts.
proposing this?
Who would do that?
And
When?
why?
It's before, sometime before 37.
Yeah, it says sometimes
So,
before 37.
what,
Well, they didn't
second
make any.
London?
They didn't convert any of them before 37.
That would
Uh,
also be
They're all
my-
converted 37 onwards. So if they're all before then, they're.
He's changing an earlier question to get Fish for an answer that we have no idea what he wants to.
Yeah, because from the
So if I understand,
so
if I understand the premise of the
post
question
30
correctly, I have. So
We
I'm
have-
sorry, Dragon, but if I understand the premise of the question correctly, I'm going to ask the following questions: Who's proposing this? Why are they proposing this? And who in their right mind is going to agree to it? Even if they don't have
Yeah.
any ships of that type at the time.
And that's why
right,
no one's going to agree to it.
That's like
I found it.
That's like
No, it's
saying that's like saying we want to force you by treaty to remove all face hardened armor off of your vessels.
because
So
that
no
was-
one's gonna do it.
Yeah.
I think I have found what ships this actually affects.
Is it by chance the same ships that we were talking about previously?
No, in fact, they're not even destroyers. In particular, the only ships this technically affects is the C-class cruiser, because they had theirs starting in about 35.
What, they're conversions?
Yes,
No, they didn't.
from what I can find, in mid 30s they started doing so. Conversions between 35 and 36 of Coventry and Curlow served as the prototypes. I probably butchered the last one there, but
They
Just from what I just quickly-
Ooh.
so if this is before 37, those are the only ones that jumps to mind of what this would affect. And even then, they're not destroyers, so you could say, well,
Well, no, the way he's
Yeah, but-
writing it, it says any ship. From my understanding, any ship that is being disposed is instead being converted.
the naval
Is that
treaties
what
would
the
certainly
question
have
is?
forced the Royal Navy destroyers to be got rid of. No, it wouldn't, because they were still.
No.
You're referring to the
it-
you're referring to the V and W
Right.
class, I presume, here again,
Probably.
because this was what the question.
No,
was
because
previously.
in nicest way, if you try and get rid of the old Royal Navy destroyers, you also have to get rid of all the old American destroyers, and the Americans don't want to do that because their entire strength lies on their destroyer force.
The Cleansome Swarm.
Because again, Clark probably has better exact times from me. The first, so for the V and W class, the first V and Ws converted to long-range escorts of this type were January to April 1941.
Yeah,
So well outside this period.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
The wartime, I think there were some wartime conversions of the V's and W's to the WAIR class again. Not not applicable.
Not in this
to
period. This period. No,
then
if
the
you tried to
short-range
approach the Royal Navy
escort-
in the middle of World War II and said, by treaty, you're going to have to get rid of all these ships you're converting, I think the Royal Navy would have, well, probably left you in a closed room with Winston Churchill and a piece of 2x4.
Congratulations, you're dead.
Pretty
Have
sure the Admiral
fun.
V and W destroyers and the Scott and Shakespeare leaders would be gotten rid of under Second London. No, because they weren't
No.
converted yet.
No. They.
Yeah,
Huh?
These are still
Well,
in their original configuration.
yeah.
Delilah? Question mark.
And also,
Were
Yeah.
there
And also
destroyers that had to be gotten rid of
and,
under Second London?
and also that implies that Second London makes it out of the cradle.
If you try to do something as daft as this, it
So-
probably doesn't.
No.
I mean, it didn't historically.
Yeah, it didn't make it out of the cradle historically.
Only
because
other
of
one I
the,
can hope
people
I can think
flying
this
out
could
of
refer to is the first London Naval Treaty, and
They're not
Ah,
even
good luck.
frigating earlier.
Yeah, because that's
Yeah, and-
1930.
You know,
So-
in the nicest way, yes, while technically Second London did go into force, it only went into force between the three nations that were the least likely to take up arms against each other. So it doesn't really matter.
Yep, Second London was basically a dead article on arrival, and was collapsing the moment it was signed, basically.
Yeah, as soon as Japan walked away, it was a waste of paper.
Well,
And-
Italy didn't sign it, so that automatically meant France was going to go for the escalator clause.
Yeah, and at that point...
And then Japan didn't sign it, and that's sort of meant America's going for the escalator clause, and Britain's going for the escalator clause. The only people who don't allow their navy to go for the escalator clause is the British government.
Da-da-da-da!
And the American government.
No, the American government
Remember-
do actually declare the escalator clause.
Yes.
They just don't
Oh.
declare it in time.
Because, I'll be honest, Knight, while I'm definitely far more okay with some of your questions than others, in general, this very much felt like this didn't even have to be a question, because there's no question here, it's just because there was no conversions done yet.
And if they don't have the ships to convert, they build more ships. That's what they have to do.
Yeah.
Or they convert other ships.
Unfortunately, Knight, it's not quite that simple to just end the stream, take your pet to the vet. It's something you actually have to book in advance, usually.
Yeah.
Unless it needs, like...
Even
a
if I
s-
want to do something,
convert-
which I
Oh, no,
do, but I can't... I can't right now.
If you
I
can
would-
take it on an emergency, but you have to pay emergency
And-
rates.
It will be paid.
I
Yeah, it
don't
will be
have
a
the
pretty
money!
We've just finished
Well, you
Gunnery
have
Officer
health
Knight's
insurance.
question about
I
19,
don't.
1937 conversions.
I don't, my mother does, but I don't, and she's in Leeds.
Well, surely she
Yeah,
has
but
the
the pet
insurance
should be
card.
explored
So, you
anyway.
can, so the pet, if the pet's insured, then you're fine. Take the pet. It's not you worrying about paying it.
I managed to get her settled, and she's not having trouble breathing. I'd made sure of that. I don't know what's wrong with her, but it's probably best to get a booking.
Yeah, like if you're ever, like,
Yes.
in general, if you're ever in doubt about your pet's health, it is always worthwhile going to see an actual professional.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, what's the next question, quickly, before I get sidetracked?
Who's lagging out the goddamn server?
A Discord question.
Tung
I just
asks,
came back from the
give
Nether,
me
so-
a scenario where Germany is whole after World War II, but Japan is somehow divided. If dividing Japan is impossible, give me a way to divide Italy. Japan can't really be divided. Well, you can, but it's a lot more finicky, and it requires
Well,
certain
it depends who
changes.
invades which islands.
Yeah. It's much easier to divide Italy. A lot easier.
Well,
Literally north-south divide.
Mhm. Yes, Runon?
Yes.
divide Italy between who?
You'd probably have to have it so that the Russians... You probably have to have it so the Russians crash through Yugoslavia aggressively quickly, and then crash into northern Italy.
Well, Yugoslavia is one of the few countries which have managed to liberate themselves, so they're not going to appreciate that.
No, they're not, but...
That's one of the reasons why, in nice way, and Tito, it probably actively made sure the Soviets didn't do that, because he knew full well the Soviets would like to replace him as much as they'd like to replace anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Because he
Yeah,
had this
because
disturbing
Tito-
habit of putting Yugoslavia for his views for Yugoslavia before what the nice people in Moscow were telling him to do.
Yes,
Yeah,
and
and
only a
also
little bit of mass
telling
murder.
and also telling
Oh,
Moscow to,
yeah.
frankly, shove off.
Yeah,
The
literally.
fight
The
is
plan to assassinate Tito
easier,
required
honestly.
a 40mm shotgun shell on someone's arm. We have to make sure if we miss, he'll come for me.
I'm not. One thing I'm curious about is how long a divided Japan will last, because I don't think Japan
The
would be
best
happy
way,
with that.
the best way to do it would
Oh,
be
no,
to,
it'll probably
create.
get Austria.
No, the best way to do it would be to not actually divide Japan, but basically you spin off an Ainu Republic, a Soviet Ainu Republic. That would be the way
That's
you
gonna
would
be
do it.
so weird.
It's
even
gonna
then,
the
it's
problem.
like-
Ainu are a minority in their own land at that point.
They are, but has that stopped the Russians before?
I knew
No.
basically don't exist by that stage.
The one thing though, like, okay, so as much as the Army and the Navy hated each other, they hated outsiders slightly, barely, mostly, usually more.
Also,
I
from what I'm aware,
don't think. I don't think you're going to get a peaceful occupation and reconstruction of Japan with Japan in a two-state solution.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely not.
I think honestly, Japan might raise a hell of a fuss and basically go, because from what I'm aware, Japan is actually quite united as a people. Like, especially at this point, they are still very much. They see Japan as a united peoples.
Yeah, which is why I said they're going to get
under the
Austria.
Emperor.
Well, it's going to be technically divided, but both sides are going to realize. So it's going to realize it's just going to turn into a nightmare to hold.
Yeah, I think the
Try and
problem is
get
I think
concessions out of Japan to reunite it. And
so
for Austria,
so
that was independence, so neutrality.
Germany is an edge case, quote, because the Russians already made it. The Russians already made it onto German soil, so you weren't going to spend the political capital to push the Russians off back to the German-Polish border.
No, you won't.
Italy is strict, and also too, Germany still has the problem of being bottled up by Britain, regardless of who actually controls that territory. Italy, on the other hand, would give, because assuming we're not doing a sector system,
We'll give the Soviet Union warm water ports.
yes, would give the warm water
You can
ports
have
in a
Toronto.
prime location to menace Western Allied shipping, which I don't think Europe, even in its fractured, shaken, and stirred state, is going to tolerate if they have any say in the matter.
Probably not.
Japan, I think Japan in and of itself is going to scream bloody murder, and you will have a occupation that makes the one that we just got out of in the Middle East look peaceful by comparison.
It's very much possible.
You can do it, the
961
aftermath's
on
not gonna be
YouTube
nice.
asks, how accurate is it to call the B-52 the plane ship of Theseus? Well, at that point,
Very.
it would just be the
Apparently.
plane of Theseus, but yes. Yes.
It basically is.
I would say 6 out of 10.
Yep.
Next.
Yep. Next question, which is...
Not questione.
We could try for that if you like. Wow, okay, that's a long section of chat with no questions.
I
There's a
have a
good few
question
bits
for
like
you,
that.
Fleet. I have a question for you, Fleet. Why are you like this?
I
Who
just-
made you this way?
Me, and me, respectively.
What happened?
Can I turn you into a cripple?
So,
No.
so you
Right.
give no credit. You give no credit to your mother and father and family at all.
I do give credit, but...
So,
Do you
But you said
really-
you
No,
just said
Do
you
you
didn't.
really?
No, I give him. No,
Do
I
you
give
really-
him credit for the. I give him credit for the good bits. The bad bits are all me.
Do you really want to assign the blame for Fleet loving that ship to anybody other than Fleet? Do you really feel that cruel, Dr. Clark?
Wait, no, Ronan.
No.
Fleet's from Sheffield. Sheffield is a portal to hell.
Oh, would you?
Which means that, and going off the biblical account of demons, Fleet probably doesn't have parents.
I
And
thought,
how
Right.
do you know Fleet is a demon?
So
thought
I
demons-
found the next.
only
I found
demons-
the next
Only
question.
demons can love the godless and detestable. What is Hosh that he loves? Godless and detestable.
Are you sure, Fox? Are you okay? Did someone from Sheffield?
You know
call
what?
you?
Fleet, just keep going. Ignore her. Just go.
Gunnery officer asks,
Why you go
What
Victorian
on
on me,
Discord?
dragon?
what is your opinion on the one-off Wichita? Do you think they forced a heavy cruiser on the Brooklyn hull? Do you think it's the lesson that counts from the Wichita with the development of the future Baltimore's, Oregon City, and Des Moines? I don't think they forced a heavy cruiser onto the hull. It was more of just, okay, let's see what happens if we try to build a heavy cruiser on this hull. We can fit 15 6-inch guns on it. Let's try sticking 918s on it and see what happens.
918?
Sorry.
918?
Sorry.
Well then,
nine,
that would be...
9/8.
9/8.
Yeah.
Sorry, 9/8.
And to be fair, it's not exactly the same hull.
No, it's yeah.
It's
It's a
the
scale
design.
difference.
Yeah, the design
Yeah.
lineage came from the Brooklyn hull.
Yeah, it's scaled, but like I'm sticking to the easy
But
to
in
reach.
general, yeah, I would agree that I really quite like the what's called Richard R. personally. I think she's a very nicely well designed ship.
The problem is
It's
she
positive.
did stuff from when she's built, she's all right, but the problem is when you try to start sticking things onto her, in refits, she starts to have problems,
Yeah.
sadly. But that's not
Stuff
her
like
fault.
that
But
almost
that's,
no more than
but that's
other
not her.
American ships.
But
at
that's
the
not
time.
her fault per se. That's just you
Her
can't.
hull is basically built to the absolute limit under
Yeah.
treaty system.
Yeah,
That's the
and
best
arguably
the
she
Americans
did
could do.
lead to lessons that fed into the future heavy cruisers of the U.S. Navy that followed her.
She's
Push it to
basically
the
the
limit.
prototype template to American cruisers.
The limit.
Oh boy.
I'm riding on.
Well, next question, Fleet.
Yes.
Hi, I have 2 brain cells.
Do you?
I mean, they're
You have
consistently
one more
fighting.
than I do.
Yeah, but mine are consistently fighting for 10th place.
Yes, gunnery officer. Wichita is the last treaty cruiser by the USN.
Timu Locker asks, can Fleet explain why the IJN refitted the Congo sisters so many times during their years of service? I mean, they had
They
a
were
fairly,
useful and they could.
yeah, and they had a fairly normal refit cycle for useful assets during the treaty period.
It's
And
generally
you couldn't
very
replace.
helpful.
And it was you could replace. You could refit them. You couldn't replace them.
Yeah,
So
in
And
terms
You
of
can't
also
build new ones,
refitting-
though.
Refitting them also kept the capital ship scale infrastructure busy.
and it's also
Yeah.
At a
worth
time
pointing
when
out
new ships were being built.
And it's also worth pointing out the Japanese had a vested interest on pretty much always keeping their ships as combat effective as possible, in a way the US and the UK with their battle lines and other assets did not. The Japanese were trying to squeeze as much capability out of each individual ship all the time. So as soon as it
They
became
don't
possible
really have a choice.
yeah. So that's why the Congos, that's why it seems like ships like the Congos, the Fusos, the Nagatos are in for refits more often and earlier to outsiders than the British rebuild programs or the American rebuild programs. It's because the Japanese need to and therefore do.
Generally,
I
there's nothing
feel-
to do
I
with
feel you're
that.
missing some bits there,
I
but
feel like that's more because the Diet, I think I said that right, was more want to spend the money than it was out of any articulable need, because all nations had a desire, because they only had so many assets for so much territory to cover. All nations had a strategic and tactical drive to keep their ships in as good a condition as they could. But Congress
boy.
doesn't want to spend the money, and
Right.
I don't know
Also,
what
it's-
Parliament wanted to do in that point in time.
What I would say
given
with
that they
the UK, the trouble is for the UK is that the R's were quite viable for a bit, so they get some refits. The Queen Elizabeths are always viable, so they're going to get refits. And so are Nelson and Rodney, so are Renown, Repulse, and Hood. They're going to get refits, etc. So basically, the British are trying to refit all their assets. The Japanese, to an extent, they concentrate on refitting things which are definitely going to be valuable. And there are some assets which get minimal refits, but they are still useful, but they are definitely not refitted to the same level or as often. If you're an asset which they think you're going to be of primary use in any future operate a war time, you're going to get first call on getting a refit. If you're going to be something which is rounding out the numbers, you're going to get the refits when you need to keep you viable for rounding out numbers.
That's what's up.
Hmm.
Plus, they're the Emperor's ships. You better keep them in tip-top shape. So, next question, perhaps?
Yes.
This is wonderful.
that. That's Wichita. Team Gunner Officer, question 7. What happened? What if Teddy Roosevelt managed to mediate the Russo-Japanese dispute during the escalation of the Russo-Japanese War phase, and also the British and the French managed to force Kaiser Wilhelm not to provoke Russia into a war with Japan? Would the Russo-Japanese War wouldn't have had to have happened? Are we going to see a war between both nations in future? I mean, the Japanese were the ones basically looking to change what had occurred. So it's not the Russians who need to not be provoked. The Russians are doing things around China, but...
Yeah, in a nice way. That's a very... don't take this the wrong way. That's one of those wars where you could say both sides were doing a plague on both your houses.
Yeah, it is that.
Because in a nice way, Russia at the same time as they're provoking Japan in China and pushing into what Japan considered its territory in China, and Russia knew it, were also at the same time trying to push towards India. Russia was being very, very expansionist-minded.
Yes.
And they were about to... They were basically in the frigate about stage, and they were going to have a find out stage, and it was either going to be with Japan or it was going to be British Empire. It was going to be one of those scenarios. And the French were really hopeful it wasn't going to be the British. Because that would have broken the Entente so quickly and so hard it would have never recovered.
That would have made World War I very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Because, honestly, at that stage, here's the thing. If the war in 1905 is Russia versus Britain, the odds are France tries to stay neutral, Germany decides they're going to ally with Britain, because the Kaiser just likes to cause trouble, or just make the world burn, and, which point France might decide to get involved on Russia's side, at which point Japan gets involved on Britain's side, and America's sitting there looking from the side going, oh good god, the world's gone to pot.
The Austrians are sat there going, oh, for the love of Mike, not again.
Well, the Austrians are probably the Austrians probably join it on the Anglo-British side, on the Anglo-German side, because why wouldn't you? And the interesting thing is going to be: do the Italians join the Italians join the French and the Russians, or do they also join the Anglo-German side?
The Italians are going to do what they do best.
Their partners.
They're going to wait and see who wins.
French.
The Italians are going to wait and see who's winning.
Let's be honest, if you see a world war breaking out where you've got on one side Austria, Germany, Britain, and Japan versus Russia and France in 1905, which side are you going to pick?
I wonder.
Which one has the UK on it?
Yeah.
Not
the German, not Russia.
Yeah, you've married...
Because let's be real here. I like my boats. I'm American. Don't touch my boats.
Yeah, you've married, what's the word? You've married
Well, let's put this way.
the Royal Navy to the German Army. God help anyone who stands before them.
Yeah. At that point, there's going to be some geographical reshaping in the world. Some new lines on the maps are going to be drawn.
Mm-hmm.
Many a Union Jack in African ports.
Because the British have shown through history we are very pragmatic when it comes to war fighting. The enemy of my enemy is my ally for as long as the war goes on.
Oh no, do you think the Ottomans is going to join in the British side to beat up the Russians?
If they feel they could
Quite
get territory,
possibly.
maybe.
Yeah.
Hey guys, guess what? I've got another 24 cans of Iron Brew coming tomorrow.
Oh no.
Nice.
I get to live another day.
Another day, huh?
Peasant woman
That's
can't
good.
afford the superior Dr. Pepper.
Uh-oh.
Ew.
Uh-oh.
I mean, I agree.
Why?
Yes.
On what planet is Dr. Pepper superior to anything?
Oh, good lord, Foxo.
Who hurt you?
I would
Dragon,
personally
have you
say
been hurting
Dr. Pepper
her?
is actually quite nice. but
No!
Dragon, what have you been putting in her mouth that her taste buds think Dr. Pepper's
No,
a good
no,
thing?
no,
why are you
no,
assuming, why are you
no,
assuming
no,
I was the one who
no.
made those broke those? No,
You
she
know you're
broke them
supposed to
herself.
wash that, right?
Yeah, a lot.
Okay, that's it. Right.
I think we broke Fleet.
You didn't break me, but I'm very concerned with my potential for ever getting monetized.
Wait. Have you seen some of the monetized channels on this platform, and they aren't that big?
Just put your just mark your stuff as not safe for children. You'll be fine.
Have been
Which
doing.
you should be doing anyway, because
Yeah,
COPPA compliance kills your revenue.
yeah.
I got an issue, Dragon, I need help with. I've got myself trapped.
How did you manage to do that?
Lo and behold,
Help me, Step Dragon, I'm stuck.
I was about to say that. It sounds like an interesting setup.
I'm currently doing farming animals, and the animals are all crowding around the exit.
So you literally can't get out. That's unfortunate.
you can. Well, time to deploy the most effective method of dealing with animals.
I'm looking.
Lightning bolt.
You know what? I'm putting the gunnery officer directive in effect because I'm looking for another question that isn't his, and I can't find it.
He's mostly been the one posting questions so
That's
far.
because Fleet, there is no longer any Discord ones that aren't gunnery officer.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good job this is the last question then, isn't it? And it's a YouTube one.
Yeah.
Knight6831 asks, what would make the Argentinians go for 8 Miko 360H2 Almirante Brown destroyers instead of 2 Type 42s and 6 Miko 360H2s? Well, the
Bigger bribes.
yeah, basically. And also the fact that Type 42s were procured a good while before the whole Argentinian Miko procurement got off the ground.
So if they hadn't procured them and they were big enough bribes, yeah.
Right.
It was well known at the time, in a nicest way, that Argentina,
don't like
when
it.
it came to procurement, was an open market.
Yep.
Fleet, honestly, I say just keep going. You've got a grand total of now 5 questions left.
Yeah, we also had a question for on Friday that was specifically for Dr. Clark.
Oh yeah, we can answer that one before we wrap up.
Fleet, are you sure you don't want to just, finish off the questions? Because otherwise...
Then you could do something different on Friday. You could do a special or something.
Oh, he's busy on Friday.
Driving,
Yeah,
aren't
he is.
I?
He's with me.
I'm driving, aren't I?
Yeah,
Exactly.
you're with me on Friday.
Yeah, so
Getting
answer all the damn questions.
You might as well, finish off.
Finish it off.
Oh,
Fine.
fine.
Sorry, this. Hang on, Fleet. 1 second.
Breaking my 3 hour rule, though.
Hang on, Fleet. 1 second.
Not for next week.
Hang on, Fleet. 1 second. Just because this jogs my memory. Dr. Clark, did you receive a package today?
Yes, and don't worry, it's put on the pile of stuff for Fleet.
Okay, good.
There's a
So-
The
pile
moment I looked at
now.
it, went, I haven't
need
ordered
to be
one of
concerned.
these.
I told
I
you it was
thought-
coming.
I'll put it next to the electrodes and the handcuffs, and it'll be fine. It'll be for Fleet.
How about the fuzzy tail?
Yeah, that one came from Foxo.
Okay, just checking.
The next question.
please.
Right.
I'm not saying please, I'm more just trying to do this to actually throw you a bone.
What do you mean, throw me a bone?
Believe it or not, while I
just saying.
do enjoy messing with Fleet, occasionally I have to make sure that he is able to keep going.
More importantly,
Yeah.
because there's 5 questions doesn't mean to just meander.
Yeah, like, it's 5 questions, and at least 1 or 2 of them should probably be pretty quick.
Okay. A rapid quickfire time.
Pretty much.
Where are we?
That was your
Not
worst
very quick,
section.
so.
That was the worst section for you in that quiz.
It was funny the first few days after. Now it's just getting annoying.
Fleet, you'll never
Don't take it the wrong way.
Fleet, welcome to what the rest of us were thinking.
Yeah.
live it down.
Look,
Just
look, Fleet.
Fleet.
You remember you remember the boot nickname, right?
embrace it.
Oh,
And how long that lasted for?
I know. I don't want to remember.
Well,
Oh.
you're gonna have to deal with quiz jokes until the next time you take a quiz, as long as you do better in that quiz.
Typical gunnery officer asks, do you think McNamara tried to do a joint strike fighter F-35 style program with the F-111 and also tried too much in the MBT Kampfpanzer 70 program? Do you think the Germans didn't learn from the joint tank project in the MGCS project? I assume we'll just go yes, yes, yes and move on.
Pretty much.
Yes.
Yeah. Next. I think there was another Discord question, no, YouTube question asked, so we'll have that finish off
There
quickly.
was.
YouTube Minecraft Watcher asks, what if in 1935 America read the room and started battleship construction earlier? They did. They did. That's what gives you the North Carolinas. The problem is, it takes a while to go, we need a new battleship, and go from draft to design to orders to keel laying. It's not an instant snap your fingers. They did.
Unless, of course, you're stating that you want to lay down something in 35.
There's nothing to lay down. They've got no plans.
Well, and especially when you account for the fact that you have let your naval infrastructure atrophy during the treaties.
A little bit, but yes.
I would say a little bit more than a little bit.
Right, so, next is a Discord question. Quickfire round continues! Oh my god, Sea Dodders. Sea Dodders, you are my friend, and nothing will ever change that, but I am not pleased with the dual-purpose Dreadnought.
Why not?
Why not? It's cute.
HMS Dreadnought was supposed to have 12-inch guns. I am not keen on the 5.25 sitting there instead.
To be fair,
But
I think
is
you
it
could fit
cuddly?
more 5.25s.
Hang on
But
a minute.
hey, it's actually pretty nice. There's probably enough for me to make a super fine 5.25s.
Looking. Typical officer asks which class of the 41 for Freedom SSBN is your favourite? I don't have one. They're all just submarines that carry missiles. And politely, American boomers all look the same. There's no uniqueness to them. Because, I mean,
That's because they're all the same class, you muppet.
not the 41 for Freedoms.
Dude,
There's like, I think there's 6 or 7 different classes wrapped up in them.
what is it? We got Washington, Allen, Lafayette, Madison, and Franklin's.
Yeah. I just don't have a
I
favourite,
don't know.
really.
I may or may not accidentally give Sea Dodders an interesting...
Do not
idea.
feed the Sea Dodders ideas. It never ends well. What was I going to say?
Sea Dodders.
And you want to know
Sea
how I?
Dodders.
And do you want to know how I know that? Because the Red Fleet timeline is what resulted from feeding Sea Dodders ideas.
Well, too late.
Okay,
You're
can-
about to
can
see
I just
Super Fire
say
5.25s
something
on
quickly?
Dreadnought.
Can I say something quickly?
Go
I've
ahead.
just had a question from my mum come through, which is, are you or Sea Dodders the Roscoe of Fleet's channel?
Who the flip is Roscoe?
Can I get some context on that one?
Same.
Well,
in the middle distance.
if you look up a channel called Breadstick Ricky and the Boss,
Oh, I know what you mean. Oh, that's
Yeah.
neuron activation. Neither of us are Roscoe. That would
no,
have to be.
Am I, as in me,
Yeah.
or Dodders the Roscoe of this channel?
You're too sensible to be Roscoe, and Sea Dodders.
But we all know you're the Ricky.
Okay, no, wait, whoa. As the only American tradesman in this chat, I have opinions, and my opinions are automatically more valid than all y'all's opinions. so
That's
shut
not
up.
how that works.
Sea Dodders, the title for Roscoe is, I would say Sea Dodders embodies it more, but Dr. Clark could also be an applicant for it. Fleet, I'm sorry, you're new guy. You're new guy. Foxo's Ricky. There's really no conversation about that one. Foxo is Ricky.
Yeah, she is.
We're not
Okay,
certain,
yeah.
we're not certain if she's just a grunt or if she actually owns the channel. Nobody really knows.
Who's that coming through the gate over there? Immigration? Immigration? Pablo, where are you? You're on the forklift? I don't know. Hide. Drives into a trash pile.
Protect Pablo. I would say I'm probably the OSHA guy.
Yeah, you would be.
I'm probably
Girl,
safety
OSHA
man.
girl.
As much as it pains me to admit it, I'm probably safety man.
Safety girl.
Close enough.
Yeah, but
It's
what
kind
does that
of a
make?
traditional thing.
What does that make Dragon? Is Dragon the electrician?
Yes.
No,
The one always
I think,
going out with
Dragon
suspiciously
might
heavy lunchboxes.
I think Dragon might actually be the foreman.
Ah, the boss man.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Right,
No
so moving
trouble.
on. Typical gunnery officer asks,
Yes.
do you think the USN Fire Control, Radar, Missile, or Illuminator, the SPG-51 for the Tartar and Standard Missile, isn't as good as the British Type 909 for Steed Art? I don't know enough to make that call, but fundamentally, I would say that
Which ones are they trying to compare again?
SPG-51 versus British Type 909, Control Radar and Missile Illuminator, and/or Missile Illuminator.
Versus what was the other number designation?
SPG-51, which was used for Tartar and then the Standard Missile family, versus
Yeah.
Type 909 for the Sea Dart.
It's always fun when it turns out that I have Excel spreadsheets. I just have to bring the things up.
It's going to be
Okay,
SPG-51, I would reckon. Not by much, but it's going to be.
Honestly, the thing is, functionally, they're not that. There is, in terms of actual capability, you have to remember the SPG-51 is started off for the Tartar and then was adapted to the RIM 66 standards.
Yeah, like I
So
said, if there is going to be difference, it's going to be negligible.
It's negligible. But 909 slightly has it, but that's literally just because it's a younger system.
That's literally it, isn't it?
Literally, it's literally it. It's
Literally,
literally it.
one's
Should be slightly
older.
better.
Yeah,
It's newer.
yeah, but the reason the other one's in contention is literally because they go, you know what, we're going to build an incredibly stonking powerful system. What do you mean it's still capable 45 years later?
Yeah, but also there's
classic
more
American
general purpose
overbuilding.
fire control, so it was more adaptable.
Yeah,
Whereas the Type 909 is very much fixed on the Sea Dart, so you know
right. And
they
for
have
the
their own issues.
And for the final, I just need to prep this before I actually answer it, so you'll need to give me a moment. So talk amongst yourselves quickly.
I will say I do have a question in Discord because I want to see the panel.
Well, ask it now while I'm prepping for the
React
last
to it.
question, because I am setting up information I need, so ask it now while I'm getting it
All
all
right,
set
so
up.
because when I asked this last week, the panel went, "What the heck are you talking about?" Anybody here play TTRPGs?
Tabletop, yeah.
Okay. Do they remember the topic on the discussion of much debate among certain internet circles about combat wheelchairs and snitties?
No.
I spent too much time online then, never mind.
You do,
I know
but don't
what
worry, carry
snitties
on.
are.
I heard somebody say carry on, but I
That
didn't
was
hear the
Mark.
first.
He said, yes,
Oh.
you do, but carry on.
Fair enough. So the whole concept of a combat wheelchair is that so that players can, if they desire, play somebody who is at least paralyzed from the waist down or has extremely limited mobility and can walk unassisted. In a game where you crawl dungeons.
It sounds
Right,
like you
you
just
are
know,
aware
made a little
Pathfinder
waffle.
has a system for that.
Yes, I'm aware that there have been systems that have been baked into modern editions as well as retrofitted onto prior editions. I still take, as a DM, I still take the position of my dungeons are not ADA compliant.
Yeah, like, sorry.
But
Most, yeah, I have to
but
agree.
it's
Most of my
also the
dungeons
fact
don't work.
Pathfinder specifically restricts
See,
them to casters.
I once
Um,
one of the characters I once played alongside in a D&D game was an artificer warrior who, how do I put this politely, was in a wheelchair but literally had built it as a tank.
Yeah, well, it seems about reasonable.
And they were literally, they were all they in they were chair. They basically rolled as they were. It was kind of weird because the chair basically because its abilities basically meant they were the tank for our unit, the warrior for our unit, and the artificer. And that is a really weird scenario for something to try for the poor. The poor dungeon master to try and deal with, to work out how do you design something that is a threat to something which is both the tank and the warrior of a formation, and he's quite literally the tank.
See, my thing is an emphasis on the wheel chair. Like I play with an artillerist artificer that is. We don't know if he can get out of his cauldron because we've never seen him physically leave the cauldron.
Mm-hmm.
That might not be true. We might have seen him do it once, but he rarely ever does. So as far as I know, he could be completely paralyzed from the waist down. But he walks around in a four-legged cauldron with an artillery cannon on it that has spider climb.
Yeah.
He is incredibly mobile.
This thing, if I'm remembering correctly, this thing had 8 wheels and also 6 legs, and could quite literally hurl battle axes like they were arrows.
Well, that's one way to do it.
What can I say? He was a warrior artificer with issues.
I feel like most people who go adventuring in TTRPGs have issues to one degree or another.
Mm.
I also play a 3,000-year-old exo that writes everything down, likes coffee, Cheez-Its, and unfortunately for him is about to get his gender transed. Nerd. And who also was willingly made into a lizard folk.
oh God.
Willingly turned into a lizard folk.
Yeah, that's a bit.
We were going into a very low magic environment, and I figured that if you had what is effectively a warforged show up in this low magic environment, i.e., this obviously inorganic entity, it could cause problems.
But
And given that Orin is essentially a brain in a jar, we just took the jar out of the exoframe and put it in the brainless lizard person that was growing in a vat.
Frankie, do you remember Mackie by any chance?
unfortunately,
Cause my last major character I actually played for quite a long time was an undead kitsune that had a mental breakdown due to radiation exposure and grew wings.
because yes, there is perks in D&D which let you get wings and then get permanent wings.
Ruin on.
Yes?
Anyway, it's just she had a mental breakdown at work, went
Please
crazy, and
don't
became with
like
dwarfs and guns.
What, Fleet, are you attempting to yell at me?
Yes, I'm trying to say, don't do the thing that you're currently doing without interrupting the others.
Okay.
What's Runon doing?
I was streaming to the Discord server, so.
Problem is that sound was then backfilling onto the rest of the stream because you did it without announcing it, so I wasn't prepped.
Was it?
I didn't hear it.
Bone Meal
Yeah, it's
Boy,
probably
I
'cause
have
Fleet
never
streams
given
strangely.
excuses for being a furry. Have you seen my channel icon on Twitch?
Right, look. So, final question, which I've been.
It's like when
prepping for.
Fleet says he's not one. You know, he does hang out with a lot of them.
I have never claimed to not be a furry.
You actually have.
Have.
You have
But-
acted with consternation towards the claim. Let's put it that way.
Well, put it this way: I'm not.
It's more of the case of
I'm
I
not
know
a
about
furry.
historians and
I'm
history
not-
people and engineers. I'm also surprised Clark's not one.
Hmm.
How do you know he
That he
isn't?
lets on.
Because
Honestly,
you tend to tell
right,
if someone's
right.
a furry.
So, we have a final question.
I'm more the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah. So I have a final question. Then I have a quick, and I want to have a quick back and forth with Dr. Clark about what will be coming this weekend in terms of content to look out for, because I think there are some things we're planning to do while we're down there that will be streamed.
Yeah.
So we'll finish this last question, have a back and forth, and after that we'll have a final reminder of who will be appearing on next week, and then we will probably wrap it up. So, Typical Officer asks, which is the best ship out of the list I provide for ASW and escort role? The Krivak, the Garcia, the Torville, or the Leander?
The escort role.
Yeah, for ASW and escorts.
Hmm.
For the Krivak, it depends which one.
Yeah, and same for Leander.
Yeah. The Garcias are pretty good all-rounders, all told. The only problem that they have is they own... Well, okay, they could actually carry a Sea Sprite, so that's not too bad. So the Garcias are okay as an ASW and basic escort. The Torvilles are better than them, because they have anti-ship missiles, anti-submarine torpedoes, and I think they're refitted with... Yeah, they're not. Yeah, they don't carry anti-air missiles as launched, but that keeps them the same with the Garcias. The Leanders don't have, I believe. So they get Ikara in batch 1. Batch 2 gets Exocet and Sea Cat. Batch 3 gets Exocet and Sea Wolf. And then it seems that... Okay, so everything after batch 1 does carry anti-submarine torpedoes. So that's good. So that's very, very good. So I'd say the Leanders, the Torvilles, and the Garcias are all roughly, and I use that term very clearly, roughly equivalent until you get to the later version, the later Torville and the batch 3 Leanders, when the Torvilles get the Croatal and the Leanders get Seawolf, they draw ahead of the Garcias. Because they only have 2 single 5-inch Azeroth launchers. I don't think they get... Yeah, they never get... any missile fits. The Brook class does, but that's a different ship, not under discussion. So the Garcias are definitely in last place now, and Torville and the Leanders are currently tied for first. Although specifically batch 3 Leander we're talking here. The Krivaks is where it gets interesting. Because the Krivaks undoubtedly have the heaviest ship-to-ship punch of any of the vessels currently discussed. Carrying SS-14. Well, again, depends on the version, but they usually carry some very heavy anti-ship missiles. In that forward... But again, it depends on which Krivak. Some don't have those. This is why it's confusing. Which Krivak do you mean?
Which Leander, which Krivik, which, all the options are... The trouble is we're talking about a period where things were often in batches, and yeah.
You want Krivak 2. Okay, so Krivak 2 still has the forward missile tubes, so that's pretty So, Krivak 2. Show me the specs for Krivak 2, pretty please.
It has towed sonar array and the guns on the back, doesn't it?
I believe it does, and it has the missile mount forward and the ASW torpedoes either side in the midships wing. It has an RBU launcher forward of the bridge. And yeah, it does have towed array sonar. In terms of all-round capability, I think the only problem the Krivak does have that it is actually beaten in by the Leanders and the Torvils is a basic level of point defense in missile form, as in for AA work, which the Leanders for Batch 3 and the Torvils in the latest ones of them have the Croatil to do that, which the Krivak 2s just do not. Which means that I'd say for ASW work, any one of the ships will do, but the Krivak will probably be slightly better with its towed array sonar. But for general escort work, give me a Batch 3 Leander or a late model Torvil, because the addition of that point defense missile capability makes a huge difference for escort work, when your threats could be multi-axis and not just submarines.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, thank you very much everyone for coming, but now I need to have a quick back and forth with Dr. Clark. So, Dr. Clark, what is the plan once I get down on Friday and on the Saturday, the 2 days I will be there? I aim to be there for 3 o'clock. What is the plan? Tell the waiting world.
On the Friday, we're building your computer and checking it's all working, which I pick up on Wednesday.
Right.
And on the Saturday, we are going to Prussia Cove to go and see the site where HMS Warspite decided to come to rest. And we're also probably going to go to St. Michael's Mount. And the reason why I say we're probably going to St. Michael's Mount is because there is a possibility it's going to be absolutely baking hot, in which case we'll change our destination, because instead of walking up St. Michael's Mount in the absolutely incinerating heat, which it can do down in Cornwall, we'll go and do something else more sensible.
If it's that hot, I
But the
recommend
plan
ice cream or something.
That is basically one of the plans, but it's a case of that's the roof plan. There's also a few other nice things which we could be doing, but I want to make sure your computer is working. And on Friday we could end up doing a joint Twitch stream from here, because whilst the internet capacity might not be great, we do have in order for the computers to work together, we do have a very high-speed network internally.
Oh, we could do some LAN games.
So
that would
it
be
should
fun.
be able to. So we could probably do a LAN game.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
And do some broadcasting
and then
that way.
send that out.
And I can send it. Yeah.
So I have two things to say. The first one I'm going to say is in my self-appointed but fleet and arguably Dr. Clark confirmed position as chief technical moderator for both of your channels. Could you please give me at least a 20 to 30 minute heads up if you do intend to stream on an off schedule time, please?
Bearing in mind, on the Friday, it will be not till the evening, because I've got to. Because even if I'm going to leave at 7:30.
Fleet arrives
in the morning.
If Fleet gets
to my hotel,
to the hotel about 3 o'clock.
I'll need about an hour to get sorted and in my room and everything else before I can then set off again.
And
to get to Dr.
Clark.
Yeah,
Dan C and him will both be probably getting here about the same time. We're going to be feeding them.
Well, that saves money for me.
There's a whole lot of mince and rice being ordered, and minced rice, beans, and all sorts of things. My sister's planning a massive cook for you for all the blokes, because she's basically feeding everyone, and she's decided she's doing it. And my mum's going to be watching her the whole time she's doing it, so it's all going to be fine. And yeah. Dan C has been down here before and has survived it, so it'll be fine.
I'm sure I'll be fine. Besides, I've been getting much braver at stepping outside my comfort zone when it comes to food. So I should be
That-
okay.
That is all well
Yeah.
and good. However, I feel obligated to point out to the court that I am 5 hours behind you all.
Yes.
So we'll be
So
so
you're
we'll
7
be
o'clock, it's
we'll be
my 2
building.
o'clock.
I don't know if we're going to live the build. We might do a live the explanation of what we've done, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I suppose whether we live the build will depend on how it goes. If there's lots of
Yeah.
if there's lots of swearing
Basically,
involved.
basically, the computer's coming to see me on. I'm picking up the computer on Wednesday, and I will have a good look at it Wednesday night into Thursday morning. And what I've been told by the lovely gentleman who's giving it as Lions, who's giving it to you, is basically it's their old game machine. They've got some money and they've bought a new one, and so they've given their whole machine.
Yeah.
And it's such a good. It's already a very
That
good
reminds me,
condition.
I need to find.
So
that
basically,
those
the
ram
amount of
sticks.
work I need to do on it is
Yeah.
probably going to be very, very.
I need to find those ram sticks to bring down. They might not fit, but even
Yeah.
if they don't, even if they don't, that'll be my contribution to the parts reserve.
Yeah, and
How
there's
was
other
the RAM?
things. We've got all sorts of things. It'll be a good machine you'll have.
Oh, I'm sure, absolutely. Hey, it's better than this one. Poor old girl, bless her. Just a couple more days, Chestnut. Just a couple more days. Then you can have a
The
nice
thing
long
is,
rest.
I'm going to hopefully teach you enough about the computers so that you can do your own maintenance. You may or may not get into building your own PCs, but you probably will be able to do your own maintenance and be able to go, right then, this part's not working, so should I just replace this part? And if you're like me, then normally you aim for your computers to be basically, until you need to replace the CPU and the motherboard, they are computers of Theseus.
Well, yes,
you
that
just
would
replace the
hopefully
parts
be the
around them.
plan.
And
I
that's
was just
that gets you a lot better computer, a lot more cheaply.
But have
And the
you
amount of people
considered-
who are still shocked at the fact that the graphics card from my previous PC survived the impact, but the motherboard didn't. And actually, I have to say though, since I've now got a new fancy soldering iron, so I might actually manage to fix that
Oh,
motherboard because
no.
I think I've worked out what's happened with it. Yeah.
Hmm.
And when I say new fancy soldering iron, when I say fancy because it cost me to buy the kit all of £15,
Oh,
so it was fancy.
Right.
But mainly it's fancy because of my old one I'd had since I was about 6 years old and had finally decided to go bust.
okay.
Because after somehow 30 plus years of use, it had decided that it was no longer going to work for
Aw.
me.
I mean, it gave a good go of it. It gave a good go of it.
It only gave me 3 decades and 2 years worth of service. That was not enough.
Oh no
And-
no
and
no
I
no!
paid
Oh
£9
no!
for that when it was
Sea
brand
Dodders.
new.
Sea Dodders, I'm not actually going to be getting rid of my old PC. It'll be being moved
No.
to a secondary role.
Which
And
is
then
Yeah, it's going to be a backup PC.
Yeah, backup
Right.
PC, storage PC, PC for doing my work on. So it's got my Word on, my Excel on, and all that good stuff.
I'm partially apprehensive to ask this question, but what exactly do you British people call hot and freedom units?
Celsius.
What?
right. So, Rudon, do you want my definition of what hot is, or other British people's definition of hot?
We'll start with yours and work our way out from there, but please put it in Fahrenheit for my tiny American brain.
Right.
I
give me
don't
a
know
sec.
Fahrenheit, so you're
Right,
gonna have to you're gonna have to convert.
The highest temperature ever recorded in the UK was 104 degrees, 104.5 degrees Fahrenheit.
I was about-
I usually consider anything which is above 85 to be warm. Everything above 95, at that point, I am not climbing St. Michael's Mount.
This is
Yeah, to me-
acceptable. Have a good day.
So yeah, to me, 95 Fahrenheit is probably where I'm getting a little bit towards the end of my comfort region. At that point,
Mm-hmm.
after that, I'll be a little more. Though probably 104 is the maximum I can function with.
As an Englishman, anything over a steady 20 degrees Celsius is too much.
So, for the record, for people who use actual reasonable units, those are 35 and 40 degrees Celsius.
How can
Yeah.
you function? I could barely function over 25.
Fleet, I regularly work outside in the middle of the field in 95-degree plus weather with 90% relative humidity.
Well, you have fun with that.
I have to say, I'm happier functioning in something that is about 5 to 6 degrees centigrade. That I'm still quite perfectly fine and quite happy in. And
Yeah,
I
Gunnery
the
gets
thing
it.
that the
In
thing that
Bama, we
scares
call
most
that
people
Tuesday.
working with me is when I'm out in freezing, what they consider freezing cold weather, and I'm wearing a t-shirt, just going, "This is lovely."
Yeah, see, Bama gets it in. The gunnery officer gets it in Bama. We call that Tuesday.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So you've all said.
It's a
So
Canadian
you've all
anything over
are willingly
75 is hot.
are willingly living somewhere where you incinerate on a regular basis.
Listen, we have privatized healthcare, access to firearms, and a lack of communism.
Okay.
Socialism, communism. Communism is usually a red dictatorship that works with socialism as its main tenets of government and social policy, whereas socialism usually works with either lip service or total adherence to working within democratic and capitalist institutions. That's the distinction I usually draw. If you
That's the problem, Mark Harkness. The humidity has no humility.
right, so
Mhm.
that's the plan. So I'll be down there on the Friday. You might see me on the Friday in terms of on Dr. Clark's channel. You might see me on the Saturday on Dr. Clark's channel if anything does go live. There might be a test stream on my new PC from down there. We'll see how it goes. Maybe, maybe not. And then depending on how things go, I might be around for brew ships on Sunday, and there might be a Fleet Sunday streaming. It depends entirely on how good time I make coming back and how tired I feel after I get back, because it is a long drive.
I'm not planning on doing any Twitch streaming in the morning on Sunday morning, but I do know that I'll probably be joined by both Dans on the brew ships, sitting in here chatting away.
Yeah, because they are staying down there longer. I can't because I have to be back up here for Monday for the big event, as everyone knows. And with that bringing us back around, reminder again for everybody who might have missed it and who might not have been here. The confirmed guest list for next week is myself, Dragon, Foxo, Dr. Alex Clark, Drakinifel, Cyclic, The Chieftain, Rex's Hangar, The Shipyard, and Venom Geek Media. Possibles are the Garden Chair, The Random Idiot, and Winter. So there you are. That's the list. It's shaping up to be one of the biggest ramblings I've ever done in terms of number of people present. And I'm really looking forward to it. And once that is all over and done with, I will step down as Chief of Communications, and Moe will be elevated to take my place.
Does this mean you'll communicate to your mods more now?
Yes, because that's the whole point of this is I'm stepping away from the dry dock as a member of staff. I'll still be here. I'm not going anywhere. But I will be no longer on staff. Right, so with that in mind, thank you very much, everybody, for watching. Take care, and I will catch you all next Monday. So in a week's time. Oh, no, actually, there's still the Tuesday and Wednesday Twitch lives to go out this week. But apart from that, I'll see you next